Chapter 42:14. Emolienne also thought of this point. She exchanged a glance with Arbor and said with a nod, "All right, I'll have someone make the arrangements." At the same time, Enai Hanji was kneeling beside His Excellency Hewen's corpse, her head drooping as she secretly wept. Several hundred Medicine King Island disciples around her were clamoring loudly to have her come out. Have her come out to see us. She sent people to kill His Excellency Hewen. What? She dares to do it but doesn't dare to admit it. Don't think that you'll be fine if you hide in the palace and don't see anyone. Our Medicine King Island isn't that easy to bully. Right? Have her come out. Come out. The crowd was surging with emotions. Many common people only dared to hide in the corners of the street far away, secretly peeping at the scene. Medicine King Island made such a big fuss by directly carrying His Excellency Hewen's corpse to the palace gates. This incident alarmed both inside and outside the imperial court in less than an hour. People like the King of Giant Pain naturally wouldn't go to watch the little crown princess's commotion, but there really weren't a small number of people who ran over to watch because they had nothing better to do. Unlike the common people, those skilled and bold cultivators either jumped onto the nearby eaves or simply stood behind Medicine King Island's group to take a closer look. What do you guys think is going on here? I don't know. We also went last time in Joe City. The Crown Princess did indeed attack Great Master Hewen's disciple, Miss Enai Hanji. But in the end, after His Excellency Hewen appeared, the Crown Princess let them go. From what those people from Medicine King Island are saying, the Crown Princess flew into a rage out of humiliation after the incident and still didn't give up sending people to make trouble for Miss Enai. His Excellency Hewen was impatient to save his disciple and was heavily injured by several masked men. He died not long after. That's truly tragic. I heard he was slashed 17 to 18 times consecutively. Even if he was a cultivator, he wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of attack. This person described it vividly as if he was present at the scene. Everyone immediately filled in a series of scenarios in their minds, describing the little stoic as a narrow-minded and extremely vicious person. The few people who were spreading the rumors were still talking in the crowd when they suddenly felt a chill on their necks. When he looked again, he saw that he had been lifted up by someone and was being carried towards the palace gate. The few of them screamed at the same time. In the blink of an eye, a group of purple forest guards had thrown him in front of the people from Medicine King Island. Enai Hanji, who was kneeling on the ground with her head bowed, was startled. She instinctively took a step back and glared angrily at one of the purple forest guards. "What are you trying to do?" The disciples of Medicine King Island flew into a rage. Several of them drew their swords from their waists. "Your Highness, the Crown Princess has arrived." As the palace door opened, Emolienne and Arbor walked out hand in hand. No one could see any hint of panic on the little Crown Princess' face. From beginning to end, there was only an indifferent stoic face, and her watery eyes swept over everyone. The few people who were seen by her clear eyes immediately felt a sense of inferiority. It was as if they were merely clowns jumping around like bedbugs and grasshoppers jumping around in front of the palace gate. Under this kind of dazzling light, everyone was at a loss for what to do. Standing at the very front of Medicine King Island's group was a young man in flowing white clothes. His long hair was combed meticulously, and his expression was very solemn and dignified. "Your Highness, Crown Princess, this is Medicine King Island's young island master, Sir Wei Su." Chapter 42:15. Aoyi took a few steps forward and introduced this young master in a deep voice. Because it was obvious that the little Crown Princess did not know this person at all. Arbor sized him up and saw that although this person was young, his face was cold and solemn, as if someone owed him 108,000 taels of silver. He looked dignified but old-fashioned. It seemed that his temperament was also very rigid. Arbor gave a fair evaluation in his heart. His gaze moved elsewhere and landed on Enai Hanji, who was kneeling on the ground and crying. Oh, it had only been a few days, but this Enai Hanji looked much more haggard. Her pair of lively big eyes were now sunken. Her hands clutched the hem of her clothes tightly as she knelt beside Hewen, tears still falling from her eyes. Miss Ni's current crying appearance was obviously much better than a few days ago when she was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws in Joe City. Just by looking at how many people around her were looking at her with sympathy and pity, one could see how pitiful this Miss Ni was at this moment. Compared to the evil little crown princess, this Miss Ni was obviously much more pitiful. Wei Su bowed to Emolian and Arbor and went straight to the point. This Wei is here to discuss the matter of our island's great consecrator, He Wen. Emolian saw that this person was well-mannered and had a decent attitude. She said faintly, "After we parted in Joe City, we husband and wife have not met with your island's great consecrator." Anai Hanji suddenly raised her head and suppressed a trace of anger. "Of course you didn't come to find trouble with us. Isn't it the same for people of your status to send people to find trouble with us? Those black-clothed youths who came to kill me were dressed like them." Anai Hanji's face was full of anger as she pointed at Ao Yi and the others. The latter looked innocently at the people of Medicine King Island and couldn't help but laugh. "Miss Anai, you're too funny. What can this attire mean? You Medicine King Island people can also wear this kind of black clothes if you want to change your clothes." Anai Hanji said coldly, "The crown princess says one thing, but behind her back, she's saying something else. If it's not her, who else can go against us? Who would be so persistent as to send people to kill me? It's all because I offended her back in Joe City." Anai Hanji said in a tearful voice. "At first, she had no choice but to let me go because of my master, He Wen. The more he thought about it, the more unhappy he felt. That's why he secretly sent people to surround and intercept us. Master died to protect me. The murderer must pay with his life. A life for a life. A life for a life." The disciples of the Medicine King Island roared in agitation. Their young faces were filled with indignant anger. Arbor turned his head and glanced at them. His cold gaze fell on Wei Su. After a while, he said, "Everyone on Medicine King Island has no problem with their intelligence, right?" The little crown princess's voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by everyone present. Everyone couldn't help but be slightly stunned. "You're saying that I sent the Purple Forest Guard to kill someone? Where's the evidence?" Arbor looked at them coldly. "Just based on Anai Hanji's mouth? Then can I also say that Sir Hewen was killed by Anai Hanji?" Anai Hanji's expression changed, and her eyes turned red. Chapter 42:16. An ominous glint blossomed from the depths of her bloodshot eyes as she abruptly glared at Xiao Mu. She shrieked, "Xiao Mu! You're so vicious." "I've never seen such a vicious person in my life," Anai Hanji shrieked. "How can you slander others like this?" Arbor's cold eyes scanned her body. Suddenly, she said calmly, "Originally, I was just like you, speaking as soon as I opened my mouth. But now, I'm really going to suspect you?" A person's first reaction of guilt and fear was the most realistic. Just now, when she said, "Anai Hanji killed Sir Hewen," Anai Hanji's expression changed abruptly. It was as if she would die from fear in an instant. It was too realistic, too realistic. But was it just a possibility? Anai Hanji was Sir Hewen's only disciple. Hewen had always valued and loved her. For Anai Hanji's sake, he had not hesitated to bear the punishment himself in Joe City and stood up to ask the little crown princess to let Anai Hanji go. Logically speaking, Anai Hanji should be respectful to her master. She could not have done such a thing. Unless something had happened between them. Wei Su's handsome face was as dark as water. He turned to Arbor and said coldly, "Crown Princess, you must have proof before you speak. You slandered junior sister Anai like this. Do you think the people of Medicine King Island can be bullied by others?" Arbor glanced at the man coldly. "You also know that you must have proof before you speak? Then why did you carry Sir Hewen's corpse and cause a ruckus in front of the palace without proof? Also, you sent people to mix in with the crowd and spread rumors. Do you think this crown princess has a good temperament and can accept everything?" Wei Su's face darkened. "Who sent people to spread the rumors?" Ao Yi stepped forward and kicked a hooligan on the ground. "Then we'll have to ask the person who spread the rumors." With that, he gave a look and the Purple Forest Guards went forward to search the hooligans. They each found a small bag of spirit coins. The bags were of the same design and had the same weight of spirit coins. It was obvious that they were given to them by the same person. Wei Su's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. Who paid you to come here and spread rumors? The thugs begged for mercy, but they didn't know who gave them the money. Everyone said that when the man appeared, he was wearing a bamboo hat, gave them a bag of spirit coins, and asked them to say a few words in the crowd. What else was there to be unclear about? Sure enough, someone had secretly arranged this, bribing these idlers to come to the palace gates and spread rumors. And Hanji, are you that bamboo hat man? Arbor coldly glanced at her, taking in her exceptionally pale complexion. This person's guilty expression was too obvious. And Hanji's face turned angry as she snapped, "You've wronged me." Wrongly accused? Xiao Mu gazed coldly at Hanji and asked, "Do you think that no one will know what you've done in secret?" And Hanji's expression changed abruptly. Her hands tightly clenched the corner of her skirt. What do you mean by that? The spirit summoning charm was disrespectful to the dead. Arbor naturally didn't want to use it on Sir He-Wen. Arbor had another method that could quickly investigate the truth. She cast a thought-provoking glance at Hanji. Have you heard of time reversal? Hanji's heart pounded. She had a feeling that the situation was about to spiral out of control. Chapter 42:17. How could it be like this? Things shouldn't have developed like this. Why did this matter take a turn for the worse when it came to the young crown princess? Hanji's gaze was a bit panicked and uneasy. She glanced at Arbor and bit her lip before saying coldly, "I've truly never seen someone as malicious as you. You did such a vicious thing yourself, yet you still wrongly accuse others." The little stoic raised her hand and was about to throw out a dictum talisman. However, the latter immediately shrunk back in fright and scrambled behind the young man. She cried out in alarm, "Senior brother Wei Su, senior brother Wei Su, save me. She wants to kill me to silence me, to silence me." Wei Su gazed icily at the young crown princess and raised his hand to block Hanji. He said gravely, "Crown princess, the matter hasn't been explained clearly yet. Isn't it inappropriate for you to act rashly like this?" Arbor was simply amused by this inflexible young man. He put away the dictum talisman and said coldly, "This is a dictum talisman to make her speak the truth. I didn't want to kill her." Wei Su frowned non-committally, and his expression contained a bit of distrust. He straightened his body and blocked Hanji's path like this. At this time, Qi Xianxian, the little fatty, and the others stealthily ran out from the star domain and blended into the crowd. When they heard Arbor's words, they couldn't resist jeering and sneering. "Oh, look at this Miss Anai. Is she that scared? It can't be that she really did something shameful, right? That's right. If she doesn't have a guilty conscience, why would she fear the dictum talisman test?" Hanji's face was livid, and her eyes kept darting around. She shouted angrily, Who is hiding in the crowd? Come out and speak if you have the guts." Qi Xianxian harumphed and quickly walked out of the crowd. "Come out and speak then. Do you think I don't dare?" Hanji stared at Xianxian coldly. She bit her lip and leaned against Wei Su's leg. "Senior brother Wei Su, you can't believe their words. It's Arbor. Arbor sent people to kill my master. It's her. Miss Anai, don't be so presumptuous as to slander me. That day in Joe City, our Jojo let you off for the sake of your master. With her personality, she wouldn't be so bored as to send someone to cause trouble for you. That's right. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it on the spot. Why would I need to go through so much trouble?" Little Fatty snorted. "You are all her relatives and friends. Naturally, you will speak for her." Hanji cried out with a pale face. She couldn't help but shrink behind Wei Su. "Senior brother Wei Su, you must help me. Help me. They want to kill me. Kill me. Don't tell me you have paranoia?" The little fatty glanced at the woman speechlessly. Hanji's cowardly appearance was indeed very difficult to enter Wei Su's eyes. However, as the young master of Medicine King Island, he had to prioritize the people of Medicine King Island in everything he did. Although he was extremely displeased that Ni Hanji showed such cowardice in front of outsiders, relatively speaking, he still believed Ni Hanji's words more. His Excellency He treated Ni Hanji so well, so how could junior sister Ni harm her own master? That crown princess was simply making irresponsible remarks and spouting nonsense. Arbor stopped Qi Xianxian and the little fatty, who still wanted to argue, and turned to look at Wei Su. If it's proven that I've been wronged, how will Medicine King Island compensate? The little stoic's voice was chilly. Chapter 42:18. Like beads falling onto a jade plate, her clear eyes that could reflect a person's figure were even more serene. Wei Su looked at this pair of eyes and couldn't help but be a bit puzzled. This little stoic's eyes were clear and cold, looking very open and candid. She didn't seem to be as vicious as Ni Hanji had previously fabricated, extorting personal gains in return. Wei Su pondered for a moment before nodding and saying, "If this matter is proven to be unrelated to the crown princess, then it's my Medicine King Island's fault. At that time I, Wei Su, will personally apologize to the crown princess and offer her a 9 abyss spiritual fruit." Everyone started whispering to each other upon hearing this. Whether it was ordinary people or cultivators present, very few people had heard of the 9 abyss spiritual fruit. But Arbor naturally knew. This was a divine rank medicinal fruit. It was sparkling and translucent like a grape, but its color was light gold. It was said that long-term consumption would help increase one's divine power. It wasn't important whether it could increase one's realm, but it was said that its taste was extremely good. After being chilled in midsummer, it was crisp and tasty, and it was also extremely hydrated. Thinking about it, if this fruit was planted in the star domain, it should be pretty good. Arbor didn't give Wei Su a chance to back out and said with a nod, "Remember clearly what you said." Mo Lien lowered his head to glance at his wife and slightly loosened his grip. The little stoic nimbly formed several transparent hand seals in succession, scattering them into the surrounding air in succession. Suddenly, the still air around them continuously produced strips of ripples, dispersing before everyone's eyes like water waves. Ni Hanji knelt next to His Excellency He Wen and tightly gripped a corner of her skirt. She revealed a hesitant and indescribable expression. What was the stoic face doing? Her indescribable hand seals looked complicated and strange. They didn't seem like talisman techniques. Ni Hanji wished for nothing more than to explode and kill her on the spot. However, doing so would instead expose the drawback of her guilty conscience. She sat there stiffly, unable to budge an inch. At this time, a very clear and transparent image appeared in front of Wei Su. The surrounding crowd let out a series of gasps and exclamations, evidently also seeing the appearance of this transparent image. There were only 2 people's figures in the image, and it moved very quickly. Ordinary people with poor eyesight could only see the 2 people arguing. Wei Su's face darkened bit by bit. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that the 2 people in the image were Ni Hanji and He Wen. Sir He Wen seemed to be reprimanding Ni Hanji at first. After that, Ni Hanji seemed to reply with something. Sir He Wen then stared at Ni Hanji in shock and barely managed to stabilize himself. Just as he was about to leave, Ni Hanji stopped him. His Excellency He Wen argued with her for a while. He angrily flicked his sleeve, kicked Ni Hanji, and said something. Ni Hanji knelt down and kowtowed, hugging Sir He Wen's leg and begging for something. He Wen's face sank, but he didn't take it to heart. He angrily threw down these words and walked towards the door. Thus, a classic scene occurred. Ni Hanji pulled out a short dagger from her waist and stabbed at the back of He Wen's waist. Sir He Wen fell down with a stunned expression. He wanted to turn his head to look at his disciple, but he was unexpectedly stabbed a few more times by the dagger. At the end of the image, it was Ni Hanji holding a bloody dagger with a vicious expression. Gasps could be heard all around. The disciples of Medicine King Island who were originally making a ruckus all turned to glare at Ni Hanji. Chapter 42:19. What was there to be unclear about now? Although there was no sound in the video, how could Ni Hanji stab His Excellency He Wen desperately with a knife in the video be fake? Junior sister Ni. A green-robed woman beside Wei Su roared, You. You. Wei Su was naturally so infuriated by this scene that his entire body trembled. He looked at Ni Hanji as if he was looking at a dead person. Ni Hanji shuddered under this gaze and hurriedly shouted, "It wasn't me, it wasn't. Senior brother Wei Su, senior sister Yan Shui, don't be fooled by this witch. This is witchcraft, witchcraft." Ni Hanji's body trembled as she shouted angrily, "You know, she's a talisman master, so she naturally knows witchcraft. Pretending that my master was killed by me, isn't that what she's good at? How could I possibly kill my master?" Ni Hanji hurriedly crawled a few steps on the ground and crawled in front of Wei Su and Yan Shui. She cried out in a low voice, "Senior brother Wei Su, senior sister Yan Shui, I've been framed." Scram! Yan Shui, who abhorred evil, kicked Ni Hanji away. Her eyes were spitting fire as she unsheathed her sword with a clang. "You're a crazy bastard. How did Sir Hewen treat you? Everyone on Medicine King Island knows about this. You murderous beast, you're worse than pigs and dogs. How dare you treat Sir Hewen like this? Today, I'll get rid of you on behalf of Sir, and clean up the sect for Medicine King Island." Ah! Ni Hanji rolled on the ground, avoiding Yan Shui's sword. She scrambled to crawl towards Wei Su, whose face was as dark as water. "Senior brother Wei Su, senior brother Wei Su, believe me, believe me. I didn't kill Master, I didn't. It was her. It was Arbor, she wrongly accused me, she harmed me. She used talisman techniques to fake this video." Ni Hanji trembled all over, looking at Arbor as if she was looking at a ghost. What witchcraft was this? How could she present the events of 2 days ago so clearly in front of everyone? Too terrifying, too terrifying. This woman is simply a monster. It was too terrifying. Ni Hanji's entire body trembled, and she kept shrinking towards Wei Su's side. With her knees curled up, she put on a pitiful appearance and cried out, "Senior brother Wei Su, you'd rather believe an outsider than your own junior sister? Slut!" Yan Shui's sword flashed towards Ni Hanji. "At this time, you're still pretending to be pitiful. Everyone saw everything clearly in the video just now. You despicable bitch. How dare you deceive everyone on Medicine King Island and make us come here to cause trouble for the Crown Princess? Not only did you kill people and frame them, but you also tried to stir up hatred between the imperial family of the Divine Prefecture and the Medicine King Island. Your intentions are worthy of death." The more Yan Shui spoke, the angrier she became. She wished she could stab Ni Hanji to death on the spot. However, Ni Hanji hid behind Wei Su and was unwilling to come out. With a trembling voice, she cried out, "Senior sister Yan Shui, I didn't frame you, nor did I frame the Crown Princess. On the contrary, it was you, the Crown Princess, who relied on your superior power to frame me based on this blurry video. I naturally won't admit it." Emolian sneered, "Why are you still talking nonsense with her? Deal with her." "What are you doing?" Yan Shui was like a mad lion, glaring at His Highness the Crown Prince and gripping the hilt of her sword tightly. Chapter 42:20. My Medicine King Island's inferior disciple will naturally be dealt with by my Medicine King Island. No one else needs to interfere. The Crown Prince couldn't help but laugh coldly as he retorted, "I see that you guys are indecisive and don't know how to deal with it. I'll just deal with it on your behalf." "Do it." "Yes." Several black shadows darted out from all directions and grabbed Ni Hanji's arms. In a flash, Ni Hanji was dragged out from behind Wei Su as if she was a chick. Ni Hanji kicked and tried to resist, but her arms were twisted and broken by the Purple Forest guards and thrown in front of the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. With a loud bang, Ni Hanji fell to the ground like a dead dog and desperately shook her legs that were still intact. "What are you doing? Senior brother Wei Su, senior brother Wei Su, are you just going to watch a few outsiders abuse your junior sister of Medicine King Island?" Yan Shui said with a sullen face, "No matter how incompetent our Medicine King Island is, we don't need others to deal with a slut." Arbor's cold gaze swept over the girl. This green-robed girl had a long face and high cheekbones. From her appearance and tone of voice, one could tell that she was a proud and arrogant person. and in Medicine King Island, she was probably someone with an extremely high status. Wei Su looked at Anai Hanji, who was lying on the ground and twisting her body, and suddenly cupped his hands in Arbor's direction. Crown Princess, my Medicine King Island was rash in this matter. Senior brother Wei Su? Anai Hanji was shocked and shouted, unwilling to give up, "You actually believe outsiders and not me?" "Slut, shut up." Yen Shui reprimanded angrily. "Do you think that everyone else is a fool? Don't tell me that no one has eyes to see such an obvious image? You said that the Crown Princess of China slandered you and made a fake image, then why does it look so real? Could it be that she can even simulate the clothes you wore that day and the furnishings in the room?" When everyone heard her words, they couldn't help but understand. That was indeed the case. The furnishings in the image just now were obviously real. Moreover, the clothes on their bodies and various other details were also rather realistic. It clearly didn't seem to be fabricated with talismans. Thinking of the words, time reversal, that the Crown Princess had mentioned before, the people of Medicine King Island, although they did not know what it was, all of them secretly remembered it and planned to check the ancient books later to see if there was any record of it. Wei Su took out a jade box and presented it to the young Crown Princess with both hands. "This is a small token of my apology." Arbor glanced at him and took it without saying anything. She liked people who were straightforward and could admit their mistakes. That was a good character. What he hated the most was the kind of person who couldn't help but put up a last-ditch struggle even when the truth had already been exposed. Anai Hanji was one such example. She didn't open the box in front of everyone and directly put the jade box into her inner world. Then she turned around and glanced at Anai Hanji. Wei Su continued, "Crown Princess, this one has a presumptuous request. Please use a dictum talisman on her. I want to know what Sir Hewen was arguing about with her before he died." Arbor had the same intention. Previously, it was Wei Su and the others who stopped her from using it. Now, it was their own people from Medicine King Island who requested to use the dictum talisman. That was great. However, Anai Hanji trembled all over and screamed. She glared at Wei Su and said sharply, "Senior brother Wei Su, is this how you protect your junior sister?" Wei Su looked at Anai Hanji coldly. "You only have yourself to blame for deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors. Now, I just want to know the truth." Chapter 42-21. Senior brother Wei Su. Anai Hanji gritted her teeth and hatefully said, "Even you were deceived by this woman?" Wei Su directly turned his face to the side, not wanting to say another word to her. Wei Su had nothing to say to this kind of person who had been caught red-handed but was still trying to argue his way out of it. A purple forest guard pulled her up on her knees, and Arbor flicked a dictum talisman toward her, its talisman energy instantly tunneling into her glabella. The jade talisman returned to the young Crown Princess's hand, and Anai Hanji, who was kneeling on the ground with downcast eyes, was already under the dictum talisman's control. Wei Su coldly asked, "Anai Hanji, why did you kill your master?" Anai Hanji abruptly looked up, her face contorted, and she abruptly said, "He asked for it. He only knows how to say that I'm wrong all day long. I'm his true disciple." Anai Hanji angrily roared, "He always nags me about my willfulness and recklessness, saying that I should restrain my temper. Why should I restrain myself for someone else? What does that Crown Princess have to be so smug about?" Anai Hanji's face contorted. She boasted that she could refine the resurrection pill, but in the end she couldn't even save her own master. Moreover, if it weren't for my master telling her the resurrection pill's prescription, I think she would have been completely helpless. What's so great about her? She says she's invincible, but it's extremely difficult to do it. Since she's always so arrogant, I'll add a few strokes to the original Bodhi Revival herb's medicinal diagram so that she'll never be able to find the real Bodhi Revival herb in this lifetime. She won't be able to save her master. The young Crown Princess's gaze instantly dropped below freezing. Those two pitch-black pools seemed to be filled with poison, so dark that one couldn't see the end of them. The resurrection pill's leaves are needle-shaped and will never bloom nor bear fruit. She originally thought that His Excellency Hewen's medicinal knowledge was poor and incorrectly drew the resurrection pill, But it turned out that this damn woman tampered with it. If she didn't know the truth, if she didn't have Planet Forest and obtained the revival Bodhi grass long ago, wouldn't she really be like this wretched woman said? Wouldn't she be unable to obtain the real revival Bodhi grass and save Murong Sun in this lifetime? Murong Sun was already so pitiful. She was already dead, so why did she have to feel sorry for her? Why couldn't he come straight to her? Why did she want to implicate her master? The little crown princess felt suffocated and uncomfortable. She pulled out the vine whip from her sleeve with a sullen face. The barbed vine whip landed on Ni Hanji's face. Ugly face, even more vicious heart. However, Ni Hanji acted as if she didn't feel anything and continued to talk non-stop. Whose master is he? Who was her heart leaning towards? When he found out about the revival Bodhi grass, he actually turned around and left, saying that he was going to ask for forgiveness from the crown princess. He also said that he would take my cultivation and expel me from Medicine King Island, and that he would never recognize me as his disciple again. Ni Hanji's face turned cold and vicious as she spoke. Do I, Ni Hanji, still want to live? Do I want to live well? If I'm expelled from Medicine King Island by him, what future do I have? What future do I have to talk about? What did I do wrong? I'm only struggling for my life to survive. If I don't kill him, he'll cripple my cultivation and expel me from Medicine King Island. How can I, Ni Hanji, live a lowly life like a normal person? That kind of lowly person whose life is worthless isn't even worthy to carry my shoes. Everyone was stupefied as they watched her hooting while kneeling there with a bloody face. Chapter 42-22. The current Ni Hanji had a bloody whip mark on her face. It was not pretty at all. The onlookers truly felt that the young crown princess was right. Her face was ugly, but her heart was even uglier. Wei Su turned around and bowed to the young crown prince consort. Apologies, Your Highness the Crown Prince and Crown Prince Consort. It was our first impression that caused you trouble. My Medicine King Island was in the wrong first. I, Wei Su, am willing to accept the punishment of 3 lashes. After speaking, he looked at Yen Shui, who was standing stiffly at the side. Young Island Lord. Beat. Wei Su removed his outer robe and said coldly with his back facing the crowd. Yen Shui bit her lips and removed the whip from her waist. Her hands were as fast as lightning, and she lashed out 3 times with great accuracy. 3 bright bloody scars appeared on Wei Su's back. Arbor's eyes moved slightly. Seeing him so straightforward, he did not say anything. Yen Shui went forward to pass him the medicine, but Wei Su only put on his outer robe calmly. He turned to Prince Imo and cupped his hands. Your Highness, Crown Princess, Ni Hanji has committed a grave mistake. I will personally escort her back to Medicine King Island to receive the most destructive heavenly punishment. Oh? You want to take her away? Mo Lien glanced at the other party noncommittally. The heavenly punishment of Medicine King Island was to cripple a person's cultivation, cut off their legs, and make them into a medicine man like a stick. Mo Lien had heard of this punishment before. It was famous for being as cruel as being branded by a cannon. Ni Hanji had already regained her senses. Hearing Wei Su's words, she was so frightened that she trembled continuously. The heavenly punishment of Medicine King Island was so horrifying. How could she go through it? Wei Su, you dare to do this to me? Have you forgotten how much my master has contributed to Medicine King Island all these years? It's precisely because Sir He-Wen is a highly respected person on the island of the Medicine King, yet he was killed by a treacherous villain like you, Wei Su said coldly. Shouldn't a vicious woman like you be sentenced to death? Cripple her cultivation before taking her away, Wei Su said coldly with a decisive expression. Yen Shui had long disliked her. If it wasn't for this woman making a mistake and picking Medicine King Island to cause trouble in the Imperial Palace, how could Senior Marshal Brother be put on the spot and receive 3 lashes as punishment in order to make up for his mistake? Medicine King Island had countless ways to destroy a person's cultivation. Yen Shui took out a bottle of medicine from her inner world and directly poured it into Ni Hanji's mouth. Ni Hanji struggled with all her might, whimpering and whimpering. It was nothing more than her noble status, that she was already a heaven-grade alchemist, and so on. Yen Shui hated her for being ruthless. How could she show mercy to her? In just a moment, he poured the entire bottle of medicine into Ni Hanji's mouth before turning around to look at Wei Su. Wei Su turned to face the crown prince and the young crown princess and said in a low voice, "I will be taking Ni Hanji away. Please do not stop me." "Don't worry, Medicine King Island will definitely not tolerate such a treacherous person who killed her master." Arbor looked deeply at this Master Wei and nodded with an indifferent expression. Since it is a family matter of Medicine King Island, it is naturally inconvenient for us to interfere. Master Wei can do as he pleases. Wei Su nodded and bowed to the young crown princess. "Many thanks." Then, he had someone drag Ni Hanji away like a dead dog and led the disciples of Medicine King Island away quickly. Mo Lien's gaze landed on his stiff back. "An interesting person. Your Highness, the Dragon Clan's envoy has entered the city." Chapter 42-23. Arbor couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Her meaning was clear. The Dragon Clan had probably already left before the message was sent, right? That was why they could come so quickly. "Who are you?" Xiaomu was a bit curious. The merfolk she had seen before were at most side branches like Granny Long or ordinary merfolk commoners. She had never seen a proper member of the Dragon Clan. The Purple Forest Guard who came to report bowed. Reporting to the Crown Princess, the visitor is said to be the Dragon Clan's young master, Long Qian. Master Jojo was surprised. Oh, the Dragon Clan had spent a fortune to invite her? It seemed that they were very curious about her. "Go and invite my big brother here." The Purple Forest Guard obeyed and left. Arbor looked up at her husband, who was deep in thought. "You think it's strange too, don't you? He's suddenly so attentive to me, as if I'm so important." As the little fellow spoke, she couldn't help but snicker. He clearly didn't care about her at all before and had left her to fend for herself for a long time. Now that he was suddenly so attentive, she was really not used to it. It made her hair stand on end. Mo Lien frowned unhappily. He reached out and pulled her into his arms, rubbing her little face. "You're not allowed to talk about yourself in such a nonchalant tone. You're very important, very important. You're my Jojo. The most important Jojo." Mo Lien lowered his head and bit her lips as a punishment. The little fellow twisted her little head and squirmed in his arms. "Let my big brother receive that person. I don't want to see them today." Mo Lien nodded and smiled. "Then we'll follow our original plan and go to Half Moon Cliff to soak in the hot spring. Why don't we stay there tonight? Come back after dinner tomorrow?" Mo Lien said with a smile. "The mushrooms on Half Moon Cliff taste pretty good." Arbor's eyes lit up. "Sure." After the two of them finished their discussion, they held hands and ran to Half Moon Cliff to enjoy the scenery. They sent a message to the miserable Mu Xingqian, asking him to go and receive Long Huan. Being abandoned by the irresponsible couple, Big Brother felt rather helpless, but he could only bear the burden without complaint. The place where Long Huan stayed was the largest guest house in the capital city. By the time Mu Xingqian received the message and rushed over, he was already a step too late. When they arrived at the entrance, they were informed that the Dragon Clan's people had been arranged to check in an hour ago. Mu Xingqian was led by the person in charge of the guest house through corridors and bridges, all the way to the Chui Hua Garden where the Dragon Clan lived. The person in charge laughed bitterly and said, "There are more than 30 people in this group. There was a girl with a fiery temper." Just now, outside the guest house, there was a guard who took a few more glances at that person before he raised his whip and whipped him. His strength is not ordinary. That person seemed to have thought of the little girl's ferocity when she slapped him. He couldn't help but shudder and shake his head. "This official won't accompany young Master Mu in." Mu Xingqian nodded and walked into Chui Hua Garden. "For you." Just as he reached the entrance, he was stopped by two vigilant men in long, diagonal robes. "I'm Mu Xingqian." Mu Xingqian reported his name in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. The gatekeeper naturally knew the purpose of this trip since he could follow his master, Long Huan, to the sovereign capital. He naturally knew what kind of people Arbor and Mu Xingqian were. Chapter 42-24. One of them cupped his fists politely at Mu Xingchen. Please wait for a moment. Then he hurriedly went in to report. Mu Xingchen didn't mind and waited outside the door. His expression was calm, and he didn't feel awkward about being left outside. Not long after, he heard footsteps. Mu Xingchen raised his head to look. With a glance, he saw a graceful young lady wearing a rainbow-colored cloak. She was surrounded by a few people as she walked over. The girl walked to the entrance of Cui Hua Garden and sized Mu Xingchen up. Her expression revealed faint displeasure. Why are you alone? Mu Xingchen raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, am I being despised? Seeing that he didn't say anything, the girl was clearly unhappy. Why didn't Aunt's daughter come to welcome you? Mu Xingchen lost interest in conversing with her when he saw that she was rather rude. His handsome face darkened as he said indifferently, the crown princess isn't in the capital today. The girl frowned as if she was trying her best to suppress her rising anger. Then why are you here? Mu Xingchen cupped his fists with an indifferent expression. This one was rude. I didn't know that the Dragon Clan's threshold was so high. Farewell. The girl's eyes flashed with anger, and her left hand subconsciously reached for the golden whip hanging at her waist. Suddenly, a mellow and deep voice sounded from behind. Shangyun, don't mess around. Long Shangyun awkwardly curled her fingers and slowly lowered her hand, glaring fiercely at Mu Xingchen. When she turned around, her arrogant and despotic expression from before was suddenly swept away. She flew to the person's side and leaned over like a little bird, calling out sweetly, Big brother. Mu Xingchen felt his hair stand on end. The person who came was a tall and handsome young man. He wore a slanted golden robe, which was slightly different from the people of the 3 provinces. His long hair was held in place with a purple wooden hairpin, and the remaining part of his hair hung down to his waist. He looked gentle and easy to get along with, but the aura of a superior couldn't be concealed. This one is Long Huan. The man in front of him followed the etiquette of the 3 provinces and cupped his fists at Mu Xingchen. He smiled and said, My sister was rude just now. Mu Xingchen nodded indifferently and reported his name again. Mu Xingchen. Because Long Shangyun gave him a very bad impression, Mu Xingchen was too lazy to be nice to her. He simply said, The Crown Princess and His Highness the Crown Prince left the city today and will only return tomorrow. Please wait in the hotel. Long Qi was stunned for a moment before nodding with a smile. All right. Big brother. Long Shangyun stomped her feet in dissatisfaction as a faint trace of anger flashed in her eyes. We don't have much time, Sister Shuiyuan. Long Huan glanced at her. Long Shangyun pouted and shut her mouth unhappily. Mu Xingchen cupped his hands. I've delivered the message. Goodbye. Cousin, please wait. Long Qi hurriedly called out to Mu Xingchen. Mu Xingchen looked back indifferently and non-committally glanced at Long Huan. Is there anything else, young Master Long? Long Huan saw his cold expression and knew that Mu Xingchen must have developed a bad impression of Long Shangyun. He hurriedly smoothed things over. Cousin is older than me by 2 years. There's no need to be so distant. Call me young master. Just call me a Huan. I don't dare. Mu Xingchen coldly rejected. The Long family's threshold is too high. Xingchen can't afford it. A trace of awkwardness appeared on Long Huan's face. Chapter 42:25. On the other hand, Long Shangyun stomped her feet in anger and scolded, You're so untactful. You're really shameless. Long Huan turned around and glared at Long Shangyun. Shut up. Long Shangyun pursed her lips and stomped her feet. She huffed and shouted, Brother, why are you purposely trying to curry favor with this person? With her brother's status, why did he have to compromise so much? In their sea of forgetfulness, in such a large sea area, who would dare to disobey Big Brother's orders? This Mu Xingchen was merely a youth from a talisman aristocratic family. He was just slightly more talented than the average person, but in their sea of forgetfulness, he was nothing. The tiny China was not even 1/3 the size of forgetfulness. A young master from a small aristocratic family in China actually dared to be so unsmiling and sarcastic to the noble prince and princess of the Long royal family. He was simply audacious. Mu Xingchen really did not know that the family his mother had risked her life to protect back then was actually this kind of family. But no wonder his sister was resentful and did not want to see them at all. So this maternal family was really such a weird breed? If the entire Long family was like this, Mu Xingchen felt that Jojo was right not to see them. If the person standing here today was Jojo, with Jojo's personality, this girl would probably be slapped. If you don't know how to speak properly, don't say it. This is China, not your forgetfulness. Who are you acting all high and mighty for? In any case, Mu Xingchen would not fall for it. With Long Shangyun's ruckus, the atmosphere became even more awkward. Long Huan felt a little apologetic. It was his first time meeting his aunt, Long Chuyun's son, and he actually made such a fuss. This was really a little inexcusable. However, he also understood Shangyun's temper. She had a child's temperament, and her temper came and went quickly. If Mu Xingchen was willing to go along with this little girl and say a few words, everything would probably be fine. However, looking at his cousin's expression, it was obvious that he already detested the siblings. When he thought about how he had already offended his cousin before even meeting the main character of this trip, Long Huan felt a slight headache. Cousin, Shangyun is only 16 years old. She is young and inexperienced. If she has offended you in any way, please forgive her. Mu Xingchen glanced at him with a faint smile and said indifferently, I wouldn't dare. Then, he cupped his hands towards Long Qing and said, I won't disturb your rest. I'll take my leave first. Just as he turned around, he heard a delicate reprimand. How dare you? The shadow of the whip swung against the wind. Pa! Mu Xingchen stretched out his hand and grabbed the end of the whip, making it taut. Although this sneak attack failed, Mu Xingchen's palm was cut by some of the hidden barbs at the tip of the whip. Long Yen was shocked. Xiang Yun, stop it now. Mu Xingchen's eyes instantly turned extremely cold. He stared at Long Shangyun so coldly that the latter couldn't help but tremble slightly. Long Huan leaped forward and patted Long Shangyun's shoulder. Still not retracting your hand? However, how could Long Shangyun be willing to withdraw her hand? This whip of hers was made from the tendons of a 500-year-old suspending sea serpent. It was indestructible and unbreakable. It was a rare 15th grade spirit artifact. Naturally, she wouldn't easily let go of it and throw it into the hands of others. However, in the next second, Long Shangyun discovered that her golden whip had turned into pieces under the other party's palm. Mu Xingchen mercilessly threw the fragments of the whip in his hand onto the ground. Chapter 42-26. The next day, Lady Qiao Qiao came over and played at Half Moon Cliff's splendid mountain villa for a day. She ate well and lived very comfortably, and only returned to the city with her husband in the evening. After receiving the news, the couple immediately returned to the Mu residence to visit Mu Xingchen. Mu Xingchen didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw his sister's tense expression. I'm really fine. It was just a minor injury yesterday. I've already taken medicine. Look, can't you see the wound at all? Mu Xingchen raised his left hand and flipped it in front of the little girl to let her take a look. Jojo still doesn't know the effects of the medicine she made. The little girl's expression darkened. Young Master Mu's heart pounded as he watched. He felt that his sister's little face was acting out a drama that foreshadowed a storm. Oyi. Aoyi is here. The little girl blinked and looked at a certain someone who suddenly stuck his head out of the window. She said expressionlessly, take some men to the guest house and chase the Dragon Clan people out of the city. Tell them to scram. Scram back to where they came from. This crown princess doesn't want to see anyone. Mu Xingchen was dumbfounded. Aoyi was also dumbfounded. He subconsciously glanced at his master. The crown prince glanced at him. Aoyi immediately quivered and nodded. Yes, I'll do it right away. What a joke. How could anyone who offended their crown princess end up well? With the young crown prince consort's personality, she would still chase them away regardless of whether or not they were from her maternal family. Mu Xingchen quickly advised, Jojo, Big Brother didn't suffer any grievances. It's just a small matter. Arbor shook his head and looked at his husband. Mo Lien patted his head and said in a low voice, Big Brother, These people seem to be here for Jojo. They detained the state preceptor and wanted Jojo to meet them. Now that they've personally invited him, they want Jojo to go to the sea again and again. Isn't that strange? Mu Xingchen was taken aback. He thought about it again and nodded hesitantly. Could it be that they have something to ask of Jojo? Mo Lian nodded. That's right. I haven't seen them take you and your sister seriously for the past 10 years. When the Dragon Clan members saw you this time, they immediately asked about Jojo. Isn't that obvious enough? Mu Xingchen's expression darkened. Could they be plotting something? Damn it. Back then, wasn't it enough for them to make their mother leave her hometown and marry her to the imperial capital? Now, he even wanted to scheme against his own sister? Why? I don't know what they're after yet, Mo Lian said calmly. But the Dragon Clan's attitude is indeed very strange. Anyway, Jojo had been suspicious of them from the start. In this world, there was no such thing as gratuitous flattery. They must have thought that Jojo had something to gain from him. Mu Xingchen was so angry that he slammed the table. These people from the Dragon Clan have gone too far. Arbor raised her hand nonchalantly and said calmly, "That's how the human heart is." They hadn't seen each other for so many years. How much affection could they have for each other? Arbor didn't believe it. People could only develop feelings for each other after interacting with each other. This saying was true. Nephew and niece? They hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years. Now, they were suddenly trying to please her because of blood ties? Did they think she was a naive teenager? Chapter 42-27. Mu Xingchen looked at his sister's cold eyes and felt a little uncomfortable. He knew that if Jojo had not been through so much, she might have been a soft and innocent little girl right now. Perhaps he would end up like Long Shangyun, being spoiled by his family to the point of being whipped if things didn't go his way. He did not know if such an experience was good or bad for Jojo. It was just that, in his bitterness, he felt that it was not easy to have such a sister. Mu Xingchen raised his hand and patted his sister's fluffy little head. He said in a low voice, "If you don't want to see him, then don't. I will support you unconditionally." Arbor's eyes flickered. She rubbed her little head and said softly, "I won't cause trouble for you, big brother." Mu Xingchen could not help but laugh. Big brother is not afraid of trouble. Mo Lian smiled faintly. He looked at his wifey before looking at the man sitting on the side who was smiling brightly like the moon in the clear sky. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that his brother-in-law was becoming more and more pleasing to the eye. On the other hand, in the guest house, it was a real mess. Aoyi was a man of action. After receiving the Crown Prince's order, he immediately brought a group of friends from the night pavilion to do something. In order to successfully drive the people out, Aoyi specially found a few dark court guards who were above the godly state to help. As expected, he had predicted correctly. The moment he relayed the young Crown Prince Consort's intentions, the members of the Long clan actually exploded. "Damn, why didn't you get angry when you hit the Crown Princess brother without any hesitation? Why didn't you say that you were from the Crown Princess family? Don't worry about them. If they don't obey, tie them up and throw them out of the city." Aoyi waved his hand and gave the order to the row of youths behind him. "Drive the Dragon Clan out of the city." The two sides were about to fight. The people from the Dragon Clan naturally did not want to be thrown out in such a humiliating way. They had to fight, but Aoyi was a jerk. He knew that the situation was a little dangerous. In order to ensure that the mission was completed, he brought more than 1,000 Purple Forest guards to help. A dozen of them could beat a Dragon Clan guard to the point of vomiting blood. Now, there were more than 10 of them surrounding one person. The Dragon Clan was in a tragic state. By the time Long Huan realized that the situation was not right, the entire guest house was already in a mess. Long Qing had no choice but to fly up into the air and say coldly, "Everyone, please stop. Everyone. I have a keepsake from Aunt Chu Yun here. Aunt Chu Yun once said that year. As long as you have the token, you can ask her descendants to do something for you." Stay Up Late waved his hand. "Fight." Everyone pretended not to see anything and fought even more fiercely. The few people in charge of the hotel twitched their mouths and squatted in the corner with their hands on their heads. How would they dare to stop the fight? Long Huan immediately became angry. Aunt Chu Yun has passed away for many years. Don't tell me you still want to ruin her reputation? Stay up late, gritted his teeth in anger. This kid is really something. She actually held a token and wanted to threaten their crown prince consort into submission? It was not that he wanted to criticize this brat, but with the crown princess's personality, seeing how arrogant he was, it was very likely that she would directly kill him and take away the token. Fight. Stay up late raised his hand and said angrily. He had followed the little crown princess for so many years, how could he not know what kind of person the little crown princess was? Chapter 42:28. She hated people who were coerced the most. The little crown princess would not blame them even if they killed the entire dragon clan today. Long Huan was anxious when he saw that Ao Yi and the others were stubborn. He saw that a few dragon clan members were injured and even more were tied up. His sister, Long Shangyun, had also suffered a few times. Her arm had almost been injured. Long Huan's expression darkened. He quickly grabbed the jade pendant and squeezed it lightly. A figure suddenly floated into the air. Child, is this my child? The woman in the silhouette had clear and gentle features. Her almond-shaped eyes seemed to scan the surroundings with great vigor. Ao Yi hurriedly called for everyone to stop. He looked at Long Huan in shock. Long Huan immediately recalled the woman in the figure. He sighed in relief and said with a cold expression, "Go invite your master. If she wants to see Aunt again, tell her to come see me personally." Ao Yi glared at Long Huan coldly. Then, he turned and left without a word. "You will regret this." Long Huan. "Brother." Long Shangyun cried as she threw herself into Long Huan's arms. She touched the non-existent wound on the back of her hand and pouted. "Brother, these people are too unreasonable. We shouldn't have come to find her. We should have told her to come to the river of forgetfulness. Would she dare not come? The miniature of her mother's life lantern before she died is in our hands." "Shut up." Long Qian glared at his sister angrily and pushed her away in annoyance. "Shangyun, when will you be more sensible? Can you not cause trouble for the family all the time? This matter could have not developed like this. If Xiang Yun had not attacked Mu Xingchen unexpectedly and angered the young crown prince consort, she would have been dead already. Why would the little crown princess send people to chase them away? Why would he do such a lowly thing and use the miniature of his aunt's life lantern to threaten the little crown princess? One wrong step would lead to many more mistakes. Didn't he know that his actions would make the little crown princess hate him even more? Although he had never met this little crown princess before, the dragon family had known about the siblings' movements for a long time. They knew Mu Xingchen and Arbor's personalities like the back of their hand. The young crown prince consort wasn't someone who was willing to suffer a loss from beginning to end. Just by looking at her actions today, one could tell what kind of person she was. Trouble. Long Shangyun, however, didn't know that she had caused trouble. She widened her teary eyes and looked at Long Yen with grievance. "Big brother, you actually pushed me? You're scolding me for an outsider. Surround this place. No matter if it's a human or a bird, I'll make it impossible for them to escape." A cold voice came from afar. Fast, it came too fast. Two silhouettes descended from the back of the blue bird as it flapped its wings. Long Shangyun's astonished gaze landed on the white-clothed young man. Before she could recover from her shock, she saw an emerald-green vine sweeping towards her arm. "Have mercy!" Long Huan cried out in alarm. However, the vine whip still landed heavily on Long Shangyun's arm. Before she could finish her scream, she suddenly felt her body become light as a vine whip coiled around her neck and pulled her over. Long Huan's pupils contracted. He saw a beautiful woman dressed in blood-red clothes standing beside a man in snow-white clothes. 5 fingers as white as jade were strangling his sister Long Shangyun's neck. "The miniature of the life lantern in exchange for your sister's dog life." "Exchange? You're not exchanging?" Chapter 42:29. Long Shangyun could only turn her head slightly to look at Arbor with her neck being choked. After a while, she gritted her teeth and said, "You actually, shut up." Xiao Mu bluntly raised her hand and heavily smacked the top of her head. If you spout another word of nonsense, I'll cut off your tongue. Truly, only Xiao Mu could reign in Long Shangyun, this kind of domineering character. After being yelled at like this by Sir Jojo, Miss Long was instantly terrified. Although he wished he could take a bite out of it and drink it, his life was still in the hands of others. He finally recognized the reality and obediently shut his mouth that was full of nonsense. Arbor looked in Long Huan's direction and said impatiently, "How about it? Do you still need to consider?" If she had only disliked the Long family before, then now, it could be said that Arbor had no good feelings towards them at all. When she heard Ao Ye's report that Long Huan had used her mother's soul miniature to threaten her, Arbor felt anger rush to her head. If it wasn't for her remaining rationality telling her that the two people in front of her were very likely her cousins. Perhaps the moment they met, she would have reached out with her sharp claws to tear apart this talkative woman in front of her. These despicable fellows did not dare to attack her in the open. Instead, they schemed in the dark time and again. They were cold and vicious. If they had any respect for Long Chuyun in their hearts, they wouldn't have used her life lantern miniature to threaten her today. When she thought of this, Arbor's remaining so-called bloodline was completely burned away by the anger in her heart. She tightened her grip on Long Shangyun's neck. Even from a certain distance away, she could hear the soft cracking of his sister's neck bone, which made his heart jump. "No, no!" Long Huan hurriedly reached out a hand and tried to steady her breathing and emotions. She shouted, "Cousin, please, please stop. My patience is very limited." Xiao Mu's beautiful, bone-chilling eyes emitted a chilly glint. "Throw the life lantern miniature over. Don't play any tricks on me. Otherwise, I'll strangle your sister to death right now, extract her soul, and make her into a mechanical puppet. I'll make her guard my mother's memorial tablet for all eternity and kowtow in apology." She felt a chill in his heart. Long Shangyun broke out in a cold sweat as a rare trace of fear appeared in her eyes. Long Huan cupped his fists towards Arbor and bowed. "Cousin, we don't mean any harm. Just now, it was only because I wanted to see you that I made such a decision in a moment of desperation. I wasn't being disrespectful to Aunt." "Shut up!" Xiao Mu bellowed. "Who wants to listen to your nonsense? Do you think you have the right to bargain with me now? What a joke!" Long Shangyun's mouth was slightly agape in shock. She felt as if the 5 iron-like fingers of the small hand around her neck were deeply embedded into her flesh. Mo Lien saw that his wife had lost control of her emotions and was both anxious and angry. He stared at Long Huan with a gaze so cold that it was as if snow was about to seep out. He only spat out 2 words. A panicked scream interrupted him. "No, no, no, no. I'll give you the token." Long Huan didn't dare to say anything else. He hurriedly reached out and threw the token that looked like a round jade pendant towards Arbor. Mo Lien raised his hand and caught the jade pendant. His cold eyes glanced towards Long Huan. The latter only felt that the cold light was sharp and threatening. Chapter 4230. The words that came out of her mouth were a very sincere request. "Cousin, can you let Shangyun go first?" Arbor looked down at the woman who was on the verge of death from his strangling, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. This ignorant woman only has herself to blame. Arbor lifted his leg and kicked her butt, causing Long Shangyun to roll down from the roof. Crackle, 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 crackle. A string of bricks and tiles flew up, and dust flew everywhere. On the other side, Long Huan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He probably did not expect the young crown prince consort to kick his sister, Long Shangyun, at the last moment. Long Shangyun had probably never been so unlucky in her life. After being kicked down from the roof by Arbor, Long Shangyun fell heavily on the ground and felt that she had lost all her face in front of others. A searing pain came from his neck. Long Shangyun was on the verge of exploding. She wanted to jump out immediately and tear apart the woman who dared to treat her like this. But the strange thing was that no matter how hard she struggled on the ground, she could not break free from the ground. Long Huan floated to the ground and quickly walked to Long Shangyun and bent down to help her up. Long Shangyun only felt dizzy, and she couldn't muster up any strength in her body. Long Huan quickly realized that something was wrong with Long Shangyun and quickly helped her up. He asked in a low voice, "Shangyun, how do you feel?" I can't stand," Long Shangyun said through gritted teeth. Her angry eyes wanted to glare in Arbor's direction. Unfortunately, Xiao Mu was currently standing on the eaves with Crown Prince Mo, looking down at them from above. Long Shangyun was weak and could not even lift her head. Naturally, she could not glare at them. Arbor looked coldly at the siblings and held the round jade pendant with the miniature of his mother's life lantern. "What is the purpose of this trip?" Hearing her cold voice, Long Huan could not help but feel nervous for a moment. Long Huan took a deep breath and tried to speak in a gentle tone. "Cousin, you have misunderstood us. It's fine if you don't want to talk. See him out." Long Huan's eyes widened slightly. His expression was as if his mouth had been stuffed with a duck egg, filled with curiosity and confusion. He felt that his cousin's thoughts were too jumpy. He could hardly understand her speech patterns. This cousin of his seemed to dislike the two of them, which could be seen from her cold eyes. Stay up late and the others were about to chase them away again. Long Huan couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Cousin, can we talk calmly?" Arbor sneered. "What right do you have to negotiate with me? The miniature of my mother's life lantern? What would you have done if I hadn't come to see you? Crush it?" Long Huan's expression changed slightly. He quickly shook his head and said, "No, no way." The little girl's cold gaze fell on his face, her eyes revealing only 3 words, "I don't believe you." Long Huan felt like he had shot himself in the foot. He had been too rash just now. Now that the knot had been planted, it would be difficult to untie it. "Cousin, can you listen to me for a moment?" Long Huan asked Xiao Mu sincerely as he supported Long Shangyun. "Purpose?" Arbor asked relentlessly. "I really don't have a purpose." Under her intense gaze, Long Huan took a deep breath. Chapter 42:31. Arbor stared at him coldly, clearly not listening to a single word he said. "Send them away. There is no need to meet them in the future." Arbor turned to look at Mo Lien. The latter nodded and took her hand. "Cousin." Arbor looked at Long Hua coldly. "I am not close to you." Long Yi's heart turned cold. He knew that this time, he had seriously offended this unpredictable cousin of his. "Grandmother's time is almost up. I hope to see you and your cousin one last time." Mu Xingchen, who had been standing behind Arbor without making a sound, blinked. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Long Yun took a deep breath. "I plan to go with my cousin and cousin." Seeing the little crown princess's cold gaze, Long Hua changed his words with difficulty. "And the crown princess. Let's sit down as a family and talk about this. I didn't think that things would turn out like this. Crown princess, please forgive her." Long Hua bowed. "It was my sister's fault for being rude. The crown princess has already taught her a lesson. Can you remove the drug in her body first?" Even now, Long Shangyun couldn't move or stand up. If Long Huan still didn't realize that the young crown prince consort had done something in secret, then he really was a fool. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. After a while, he said, "Do you think that everyone in the world is a fool except for you?" Long Hua's heart tightened. "Why does the crown princess say that? I have not seen you for more than 10 years. You can threaten me with the miniature of my mother's life lantern. Are you worthy of my trust? My elder brother and I have been around for so many years, but you have never thought of us. I really think it's funny. With your intelligence, can you only think of such a lousy excuse? Is it really so important that my elder brother and I can let the dying old lady see her one last time?" Arbor suddenly laughed loudly, his laughter filled with endless coldness. "Long Chuyun, do you still remember what she looks like? You don't even remember Long Chun, so why are you looking at me with such a hypocritical expression and saying that you missed me?" Jojo, Mu Xingchen looked at his sister sadly. Mo Lien suppressed her anger and held Arbor's small hand to comfort him. "You're disgusting," Arbor said coldly. Her eyes were as bright as diamonds, as if they could clearly illuminate the darkest and ugliest side of a person's heart. Long Qian was speechless. Thinking of the true purpose of this trip, He could only remain silent. Crown Princess, I know you have a grudge against the Dragon Clan. Don't think too highly of yourself. Arbor's voice interrupted him. The Dragon Clan is just a stranger to me. I don't have any resentment or anger towards you. Long Qian stilled. Arbor said coldly, do you suddenly go crazy and get angry at strangers when you're walking on the streets? Strangers? Strangers. A trace of anger rose in Long Qian's heart. From beginning to end, the girl had tried her best to distance herself from the Dragon Clan. While he felt helpless, he was also slightly angry. He had already humbly pleaded for leniency, but the other party's stubborn look really made him feel helpless. You're too wary of us. Long Qian could only say this dryly. Xiao Mu responded with an indifferent glance before turning around to leave with Emo Lien in tow. Chapter 42-32. Cough 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 cough. Long Shangyun heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did she realize that she could move. Anger flashed in her eyes as she said indignantly, Brother, shut up. Impatience flashed across Long Qian's eyes. Seeing that Ao Yi and the others were about to chase them away again, Long Qian raised his hand and took out a letter. There's another important matter on this trip. It's about the plan to fight against Tian Yun together. We need to meet His Majesty to discuss it. Ao Ye's section Breakamo Lien raised his hand to wipe Jojo's wet hair. He sat beside her and said in a low voice, They'll meet father tomorrow. Arbor held the round jade pendant in her hand and kept turning it over and over. She looked a little tired. Don't think too much. Emo Lien hugged her and stroked her dry hair. He rubbed her little face. Father will definitely summon us tomorrow. We'll talk about it then. Arbor's lips curled into a cold smile. Jojo. Emo Lien held her little face and looked at her seriously. Don't be angry because of others. It's not worth it. Don't care what their motives are. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. There's always a way. Okay? Arbor looked at him listlessly. Annoying. Emo Lien couldn't help but laugh. He carried her to the bed. He pushed her down and smiled. I'll always have my husband. Arbor's dark eyes looked at him and then at him. She suddenly pulled the cup over her head. Sleep. The next day, Arbor only opened her eyes when the sun was high in the sky. She sat up and looked expressionlessly at the man who was sitting by the bed and looking at her with a smile. Morning, Jojo. How was it early? Wasn't it almost noon? Emo Lien picked her up and pinched her weak little arm. Jojo, are you tired? Xiao Mu grumpily cast him a sidelong glance, but when she saw the latter's small, sparkling phoenix eyes, she huffed in a huff. Let's get something to eat before we go. Where to? Father is entertaining the Wang Chuan Dragon Clan in the Imperial Garden and has invited us over. Oh. King Zheng and his wife are also here. Emo Lien was diligently wiping his wife's face. When Arbor heard this, he quickly grabbed his hand. What are they doing here? Mother's body has almost recovered. Logically speaking, it's time to meet the two of them. Previously, the great emperor had used the excuse that the empress needed to recuperate to reject King Zheng's 2 requests for an audience. It seemed that this had caused King Zheng to feel anxious. Arbor shook his head. I don't want to live a good life. Who knew what was going on in his head all day long? Mother's personality was very straightforward. If King Zheng hadn't been so scheming in front of her, she believed that Mother wouldn't have given him the cold shoulder for so many days. Although Princess Consort Zheng's looks were ordinary, she was also a diligent and thrifty person. Just look at how Princess Consort Zheng's birthday last time angered her. She truly had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have such a husband. Don't mind them. Emo Lien pursed his lips and pulled the little stoic to the side to eat. We'll go over after we're full. Who the hell knew if there would be a ruckus there? After all, King Zheng and the Long siblings would be at the banquet later. They didn't look like they would be content with their lot. Arbor deeply agreed. Seeing that her husband had made the arrangements, she sat down with him. When the great emperor's personal eunuch came over to invite them, he happened to see the sumptuous meal in front of the young couple. His mouth couldn't help but twitch. Chapter 42-33. Just how much did His Highness distrust His Majesty? Was he afraid that his wife wouldn't be fed enough and would feed her first before attending the banquet? This little eunuch had been sneaking peeks at the stoic-faced little crown princess the entire way here as if he was looking at a weirdo. The latter was completely unaware and obediently sat next to Prince Mo, poking the little treasure beast on her lap in boredom. The little treasure beast's eyes revealed a trace of bright sadness, and a pitiful expression hung on its lifeless furry face. After the little girl poked it continuously a dozen times, it looked like it was on the brink of death. With a conflicted furry face, it spat out a pill with a pu sound. The little crown princess picked up the pill and glanced at it before silently putting it in her pocket. She sighed and said, "I feed it so many medicinal ingredients every day, but it only spat out a few pills." The spirit root tempering pill that little treasure spat out was pretty good. If it spat out more, it would definitely be good for the children of the Purple Forest Guard. However, this little imp was also very clever now. It ate more than it spat out. Sometimes, when she poked it a dozen times, it would just lie there motionlessly like a dead pig. It would occasionally spit out a pill, which seemed like it was already giving her a lot of face. Strange, this fellow seemed to understand her a little and wasn't afraid of her poking at all now. It seemed like it firmly believed that the little Master Silver was a paper tiger and didn't pose any threat to it at all. Arbor was a bit indignant. Where was her dignity? Jojo, stop poking it. Mo Lien helplessly reached out to grab the little fellow's small hand and kissed it. Actually, this little treasure beast was also quite pitiful. She saw it looking up at the sky all day long with a bright and sorrowful expression. After looking at it for a long time, she suddenly felt that the expression on that furry face was also quite rich. Spit out another pill. You spat out 5 pills yesterday. Why are there only 4 today? It's getting less and less every day. If you spit out another pill, I won't poke you anymore. Mo Lien, Your Highness the Crown Prince, the Crown Princess has arrived. A eunuch's soft voice came from the garden path leading to the pavilion. The great emperor secretly rolled his eyes and looked out of the garden. These 2 brats really put on airs. They actually dared to make their father wait. Looking up, he indeed saw his good son holding the young crown prince consort's small hand as they slowly walked over. The handsome man and beautiful woman's clothes fluttered in the wind. It was truly an eyesore to look at. Bai Wuxia smiled happily and said, "Xiaomo, Xiao Xiao, come and sit beside mother." There was a round table in the flower pavilion. The great emperor and his wife naturally sat close to each other. There were 2 empty seats beside the empress, which were naturally reserved for the crown prince and his wife. Mo Shikong sat with his wife, Shi Yongyan, across the 2 empty seats. His face didn't look too good. Arbor was led to the table by Prince Mo. He glanced around and saw Long Huan and Long Shangyun sitting beside the emperor. Long Huan hurriedly pulled Long Shangyun up and bowed. Greetings to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Long Shangyun puffed up her cheeks and reluctantly stood up with her brother. She cupped her hands towards Xiao Mu and Xiao Mu, but when her eyes, which were darting around, landed on Mo Lien, she suddenly paused. It was as if her soul had been hooked, and she stared at him without letting go. Brother, Long Shangyun's eyes were filled with surprise. Last night, when she saw him in a hurry, she thought she was seeing things. How could the person in front of her? Long Huan hurriedly pulled his sister. Long Shangyun regained her senses. Chapter 42-34. Bai Wuxia looked at Long Shangyun with interest. He pulled Arbor to sit beside her, but his gaze was fixed on Long Shangyun. He smiled warmly and said, "Miss Long, have you met the Crown Prince before?" Long Shangyun hurriedly sized up the Crown Prince, then lowered her eyes and shook her head cautiously. No. Bai Wuxia looked at Long Shangyun curiously. The meaning in this Miss Long's eyes was not what she meant. This younger sister does not know etiquette. I hope the Empress will not blame her. Long Huan smiled and smoothed things over, changing the topic. Yesterday, there was a small misunderstanding between us 2 siblings and the Crown Princess. It was not very pleasant. I hope the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess can forgive us. Today, I have prepared a small gift as an apology. I hope the crown princess will do me the honor. Long Huan had obviously checked out the little crown princess's background and sincerely wanted to mend their relationship. So when they met today, she immediately presented the gift. Xiao Mu cast a sidelong glance at the maidservant who walked up to her and bowed slightly in salute while holding a large embroidered gift box. She glanced at Long Huan noncommittally. Seeing this, the two dragon clansmen sitting respectfully beside her hurriedly said with a smile, "This is a golden lotus from my sea of forgetfulness, the pond lotus sage realm. After consuming it, an ordinary person's lifespan will be extended by 200 years. For cultivators below the god realm, their cultivation will increase by 1 level. For cultivators above the god realm, their cultivation will also increase by half a level." When this was said, even Mo Lusheng and Bai Wuxia could not help but look towards the box. The servant girl was a smart person. She knew the meaning of the song. Seeing this, she opened the box and placed one of the golden lotuses in front of everyone. That golden lotus was only slightly longer than an adult woman's palm. The petals contracted and gathered together, the small flower body emitting bits of golden light. It was very eye-catching. Bai Wuxia sighed. "I've long heard of the great name of the lotus sage realm in the pool of forgetfulness. The products inside are truly eye-opening." Long Shangyun immediately became somewhat arrogant. She raised her head and laughed. "The Pond Lotus Sacred Land is the largest sacred land within the River of Forgetfulness. Not only is it famous in the sea region, I believe it is also very famous in the 3 prefectures." "Cousin, do you like it?" Long Shi asked with a smile. The little stoic obediently sat next to the crown prince without making a sound. She was just like a little lump of wood, not even the slightest change in her expression. Everyone was speechless. What's going on? Suddenly, there was a feeling of not being able to continue the conversation. Could it be an illusion? Queen Bai chuckled. "Jojo doesn't seem interested. Why don't you take back such an expensive gift, young Master Long?" Long Huan's smile froze on his face. The maidservant held the brocade box with the lid open. She looked at her master, then looked at the little crown princess, and continued to stand there awkwardly. "Empress, you must be joking." Long Huan chuckled awkwardly and looked at the little crown princess. "How can I take back a gift that has been given out? If the crown princess isn't willing to accept it, then this one can only have someone throw it away. Everyone! Exclamation point. Tycoon, please accept our eyeballs." The little crown princess expressionlessly looked at Long Huan and continued to remain silent. Long Huan knitted his brows and sent a meaningful glance to the maidservant. The maidservant knowingly raised her hand and tossed the box up, even specially tossing it towards the little crown prince under everyone's attentive gazes. They watched as that golden lotus flew out of the box and slowly fell to the ground. Roar! The treasured beast that had been playing dead and not moving the entire time finally moved. Chapter 42-35. Everyone stared blankly at the round little beast that suddenly rushed out. That's right, it was a furry, round little beast that was emitting 5 types of faint light from its body. It jumped to the ground and directly held the golden lotus in its mouth, chewing and swallowing it in a few bites. Everyone! Could it be that they were still in a dream? Were their eyes playing tricks on them just now? What kind of beast was that? It seemed to have swallowed the golden lotus? Yes, their eyes must be playing tricks on them. Long Shangyun stood up abruptly, her eyes almost popping out of their sockets. You? The moment she stood up and raised her head, everyone saw clearly that there were still 5 shallow finger marks on her neck, as if someone had pinched it out. At this moment, it had not completely faded away. Long Shangyun's eyes were filled with shock. She suddenly turned around and glared at Arbor. "This is your beast?" Little Crown Princess looked at her expressionlessly and frowned. She waved at Xiao Bao, who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead, and reprimanded, "Come back." Xiao Bao immediately scampered over and jumped onto her knees. Little Crown Princess used her hand to smooth out the messy hair on Xiao Bao's head and said coldly and casually, "Sorry, my little beast likes to pick up the trash on the ground to eat. I've made a fool of myself." Everyone! Fuck, can we complain in our hearts? Emperor and Empress, Tang Yuan's wife has been led astray by little Tang Yuan. Look at her calm expression and calm expression. Why does she look so serious when she spouts nonsense? Ridiculous! Long Shangyun was furious. This is the golden lotus produced in the pond lotus sacred realm. How can it be done? She really could not spit out the word, trash. Arbor blinked and said with a puzzled expression, if it's not trash, why did you throw it on the ground? My Zhenzhen always likes to pick up the trash on the ground to eat. This habit can't be changed no matter what. You deserve to be beaten. You're not obedient. As she spoke, her delicate little face tightened as she raised her hand and patted little Treasure's head. After eating the golden lotus, our dear Zhenzhen continued to lie on Xiao Mu's lap and play dead, as if it hadn't jumped down to eat the golden lotus at all. It completely ignored the surrounding glares that were as sharp as swords. Prince Mo coughed lightly and handed a cup of warm tea to his wife. Will Zhenzhen get a stomachache? Arbor lowered his head and looked at little Treasure who was pretending to be dead. He pulled its fur and put the tea beside its mouth, feeding it a few mouthfuls. Don't worry. Give it a bottle of nutrient solution later. Everyone was speechless as they looked at the crown prince and his wife. They always felt that this matter had become very funny. A golden lotus that was hard to find and could increase a cultivator's cultivation realm after consuming it was swallowed by an unknown little beast like trash. After that, the crown prince and his wife even disliked it and said that the little beast might have a stomachache after eating it. Wasn't this funny? Long Shangyun was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She raised a trembling finger and pointed at Arbor. Her lips kept trembling. You actually? In her anger, Long Shangyun felt that she could no longer speak a complete sentence. Arbor looked at her coldly. Looking for trouble? Oh no. I'm not looking for trouble. Long Qian hurriedly reached out and pulled his sister's sleeve, forcefully pulling the frozen Long Shangyun back to her seat. Sighing weakly, Long Qian looked at the little crown princess with a complicated gaze. Chapter 42-36. This cousin's hostility was very strong. She wasn't willing to accept his present, which meant that she definitely didn't want to reconcile with them at all. What was he supposed to do now? The more Long Huan thought about it, the more his head hurt. His gaze couldn't help but land on the little crown princess's expressionless face again. The little stoic was truly extremely difficult to deal with. Arbor noticed his gaze and looked away after an indifferent glance. He couldn't help but snicker in his mind. These siblings truly had a good idea. Did they think that Sir Jojo would accept anyone's present? Little Treasure's small head drooped listlessly as it lay on the little stoic's legs, pretending to be about to die. Long Huan, who originally wanted to worm his way into being friends with Arbor, suddenly felt his words stuck in his throat when he saw his precious beast's appearance. What should he say? Should he say, Crown Princess, your little beast ate our family's golden lotus, so does that count as you accepting our Long clan's present? But the little beast was drooping half dead, and it even had to wash its stomach with nutrient fluid when it got home. It felt like it had eaten a mouthful of the golden lotus. If by any chance this weak little beast died later on, would the Crown Princess blame their Long family for this? After all, they were the ones who threw trash everywhere, which led to the little beast accidentally ingesting trash and dying. Everyone glanced sympathetically at the conflicted young Master Long and silently lit a candle for him in their hearts. They could tell that this young Crown Prince Consort and the people of the Long family were like sworn enemies. The Crown Prince Consort disliked the people of the Long family very much. After Long Shangyun angrily sat down, her eyes glanced at Arbor from time to time, fiercely stabbing her with her eyes. She grew up in Forget River and had lived like a princess since she was young. She had never suffered any hardships, let alone the humiliation yesterday. Her aunt's daughter was too unruly and didn't have the slightest sense of family values. It truly made people hate her to the core. Arbor took the clean teacup from the Crown Prince and took a sip. Young Master Long, if your sister doesn't want those eyes anymore, then feel free to continue glaring at me. Long Huan's face was immediately filled with embarrassment. He turned around and saw Long Shangyun staring at him with her eyes wide open and her face full of grievance. Crown Princess, Shangyun is your cousin. Long Huan sighed. Do you have to treat her like this? Spoiled, domineering, and ignorant. Arbor said coldly, if I had such an arrogant and ignorant younger brother or sister, I would beat them until their parents couldn't recognize them. Embarrassing. Arbor's words were cold. He looked at Long Huan with a mocking gaze. If you don't have a good upbringing, don't bring him out to show off. You won't tarnish your family's name. Long Huan's face alternated between green and white. He suddenly felt embarrassed. The little crown princess's tongue was too sharp. Once she opened her mouth to rebuke him, he would start doubting his life. Ha! Mo Liusheng's awkward laughter was completely out of place with the atmosphere here. The White Empress covered her mouth and laughed. She gently said, pass on the food. Everyone should be hungry. The young eunuch at the side immediately ran out. Not long after, the dishes flowed in from outside the pavilion. After the Emperor and Empress picked up their chopsticks, everyone looked at each other awkwardly and began to eat. The little crown princess was clearly full, but seeing that the dishes were plentiful, she reluctantly started eating. Chapter 4237. Delicacies naturally couldn't be let down. The little stoic felt that even if she was full, she could still stuff a few more pieces of white jade tofu and the like down her stomach. Kai Xiu. Kai Xiu jogged over with a set of dazzling gold tableware in her hands. The little crown princess was expressionless as she picked up some food from the nearby bowls and placed it in that dazzling gold bowl. Kai Xiu took the gold bowl, picked up little treasure, and walked to a small table to feed it. Everyone, the nouveau riche little crown princess was using such a large dazzling gold bowl to feed the little beast. This was too extravagant. A cough, cough, cough. One of the Dragon Clan members respectfully seated below coughed dryly and raised his cup. Your Majesty, what do you think of the letter this humble one presented yesterday? Oh, Sir Long Mao's plan to eradicate heavenly fate is indeed very detailed. However, we feel that there are still quite a few obstacles when it comes to concrete implementation. First of all, you mentioned uniting the 3 provinces, but you didn't specify who will be the vanguard and who will be the commander-in-chief, Mo Liusheng said aloofly. He skimmed through the plan presented by the Dragon Clan yesterday before having someone clean it up and toss it aside. It was all talk and no practical targeting plan. It only talked about uniting all the forces that could be united. What about the direction? What should be done first and what should be done later? There was nothing. Could it be that after the 3 provinces gathered, everyone would be like a plate of loose sand, and everyone would first have a great battle royale? Your Majesty is right. That middle-aged man called Long Mao nodded with a smile and said, the plan letter we presented to Your Majesty yesterday actually didn't go into too much detail. The concrete implementation method still needs to be discussed in detail with Your Majesty face to face. Right now, the first step of our plan is for Wangchuan Dragon Clan, Divine Province Mo Clan, Underworld Province Ming Clan, and Song Province Rong Clan to each select a group of elites, gather them, and head to Wangchuan's training ground first. We will pool our resources, medicine, and everything. We are bound to turn this group of elites into experts of the God realm and above. In the future, we will use their full strength to eradicate heavenly fate forces everywhere. This is the first step. As for the second step, we will discuss it in detail after we establish the Heaven Exterminating Battle Team. Long Mao was a guest elder in the Dragon Clan. Although his strength was not great, it was said that he was very quick-witted. Just by looking at the way he spoke, it was actually very difficult to tell that he was someone who had received almost no education since he was young. He had not even attended a private school for a few days. The Heaven Exterminating Battle Group? Arbor couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He subconsciously looked up at the sunny sky outside the pavilion. What did this have to do with the Heavenly Tao? Why did he want to destroy the heavens? That's not a good name. The little crown princess shook her head. She held a spoon in her hand with an expressionless and obedient look. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other speechlessly. Crown Prince Consort, isn't your focus a bit too different from other people's? Now is not the time for you to express your opinion on the name, but your opinion on the plan. Long Mao looked at the young crown princess with a smile and asked with a gentle smile, "What do you think, Miss Biao?" Kill the Celestial Fate Battle Group. Everyone, for some reason, they didn't want to talk to the crown princess. This sudden emotion suddenly became so intense. Mo Lien suppressed the smile at the corner of his mouth. He felt that he must support his wife unconditionally. Chapter 4238. We feel that this name is very good. Prince Mo had an unperturbed expression, insisting on saying this name properly. Look, kill Heavenly Fortune, kill Heavenly Fortune. It's easy to understand and catchy. It's much better than destroying the heavens. What we want to destroy is Heavenly Fortune, not the heavens. It won't be good if Heavenly Law misunderstands. Everyone, they no longer had any words to describe this couple. While the Crown Prince explained with a serious expression, the little Crown Princess obediently sat next to him and nodded repeatedly. She nodded when the Crown Prince said one sentence. She nodded again when he said two sentences. It was as if the Crown Prince was her mouthpiece, and everything he said would go straight to her heart. Everyone expressed their helplessness. How could this Heavenly Law be so bored as to misunderstand the names they came up with? Mo Luxing simply didn't dare to drink water, because he was afraid that he would spit it out in front of everyone. He was a fucking great emperor. If he spat out water in front of everyone, would he still care about his handsome face? On the other hand, the White Empress was very self-restrained. She smiled gently as usual and praised, "Jojo came up with quite a good name." Arbor nodded again. "None of the beasts dislike the names I come up with." The five-colored treasure beast peeked out a lifeless face from the golden ocean bowl and silently swallowed its tears. It really didn't know why its little master came up with the name Jinjin. At that time, its master gave it three choices, which seemed to be very democratic. 5 flowers, colorful, Jinjin. See, there seemed to be a lot of choices, right? In fact, none of the names could be used. While the five-colored treasure beast hesitated with tears in its eyes, the little master thought it was fond of the last name, Jinjin, and then gave it the final word. There was no more after that. "Jinjin, do you like this name?" But facing you, plus an emotionless face. Not speaking means you like it. "Master, I really have a talent for naming." The little beasts all cast sympathetic gazes at the treasure beast. "Brother, we've all experienced what you've experienced before, self-righteous." Long Shangyun, who was sitting on the side with a cold face and listening for a long time, couldn't help but tightly grip the wine cup in her hand and sneered. The little stoic immediately turned around to glare at her. Seeing this, Long Mao hurriedly tried to smooth things over. "Everyone, the matter of the battle team's name isn't the most important. These are all small matters. We can slowly discuss them in the future. Other than wanting to meet the eldest Mrs. son and daughter, our young master is here to discuss with His Majesty about the selection of elites for the battle group." Mo Luxing raised his eyebrows. The Forgotten River Dragon Clan plans to gather the elites of the 3 states and head to the Forgotten River training grounds. Not bad. The reason why we chose the River of Forgetfulness is because the ocean is vast. We chose Lisha Island, the largest island near the Pool Lotus Sacred Land. Long Mao smiled and said, "This island is close to the sacred domain. It's a natural sacred domain. I'm sure it will be of great benefit to everyone's strength." Mo Luxing twirled the cup at his fingertips. The Forgotten River Dragon Clan is really generous. They're offering resources and environment. Could it be that they want to be the leader of the Celestial Fate Legion? Everyone was speechless. Since the Great Emperor had already started yelling, "Kill the Heavenly Fate Battle Group," it meant that the name of the battle group had already been decided. Long Mao smiled faintly and shook his head. "Your Majesty misunderstands. Just as Your Majesty said, no one will be convinced of being the leader of the Heavenly Fate Legion." Chapter 4239. It's even more impossible for us, the Dragon family of Forgotten River, to step forward and be the leader, Long Qian said with a humble smile. Fortunately, the Underworld and Song continents have already unified their statements and appointed a candidate. If there are no problems with the emperor, then our leader is decided. Who? Mo Lusheng raised his brows without batting an eyelid. The Tsang continent's emperor had already ascended to heaven. He didn't seem to have heard that the brat who ascended the throne had any relationship with the old bastard from the underworld continent. Mo Lien suddenly lowered his head and glanced at Sir Jojo beside him. Sensing his gaze, the latter looked up blankly and returned the crown prince's gaze. Prince Mo, looking at his Jojo's blank expression, she definitely didn't expect someone to be thinking about her. The candidate appointed by both the Tsang continent and the underworld continent is cousin Jojo. This time, it was the divine prefecture's emperor's turn to look puzzled. He glanced at his expressionless daughter-in-law. Arbor also glanced at the emperor and frowned slightly. He glanced at Long Qian, who was looking at him with a smile. Young Master Long is indeed trying to get me to go to Forgotten River, Arbor said coldly. Long Qian paused and hurriedly explained, that's not the case. Why would I joke about such an important matter? Cousin is indeed the candidate appointed by both the underworld and Tsang continents. You have to know that when the time comes, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of elite cultivators will gather from the 3 continents. If they hand it over to a suspicious person, neither side will be at ease. And cousin, Arbor rolled his eyes. Not interested. Who had the time to train with them on that lousy island? Long Qian was a little anxious now. Back when they were discussing with the underworld and Tsang continents, they couldn't decide on a leader after a long discussion. Until the Tsang continent suggested that the little crown princess be the leader, and the underworld continent readily agreed. Although he did not know what was going on, Long Huan was very sure that the young crown princess had no problems in the Tsang prefecture and the underworld prefecture. Naturally, there would be no problems in the divine land. Long Shangyun's eyes widened when she heard the young crown princess rejection. Since we're discussing the matter of rebelling against the heavenly fate together, as a citizen of the 3 continents, shouldn't you support us unconditionally? How can you so willfully reject us? Do you have any sense of responsibility? No. Arbor put down the spoon in his hand and looked at the emperor expressionlessly. Father, if you're here to discuss this matter, then I refuse. I'll take my leave first. Bai Wuxia couldn't help but want to laugh. He quickly held her little hand and said, Hey Jojo, you've only eaten 2 mouthfuls. Eat a little before you leave. All right, let's stop discussing. The dishes are getting cold. Let's eat first. Arbor rubbed his round belly. Looking at the table full of dishes, he couldn't eat any more. Mo Lien scooped a bowl of fish soup for him. Drink some soup. We'll go out for a walk later to help with digestion. Bai Wuxia looked at his son in amusement. Mo Lusheng couldn't help but chuckle. Just now, the little eunuch secretly reported that the young couple had already eaten their fill in the Eastern Palace. They must think that their father didn't give them any food to eat. Thus, until the end of the meal, the young crown princess did not mention a single word about what had just happened. Long Huan was secretly anxious. He turned and stole a glance at Long Mao. The latter shook his head at him, indicating that he should not continue talking about this matter. Chapter 4240. It was very obvious that the crown princess was very wary of the Long clan. No matter what they did or said, the crown princess would associate it with deceiving her to go to the River of Forgetfulness, or what is the Long clan's goal in the River of Forgetfulness? Long Mao couldn't help but sigh. He looked up at the silent little crown princess sitting beside the crown prince and planned to talk to the emperor about this. It was night. The moon was as deep as water and the stars filled the sky. Arbor leaned against the window and looked up at the faint swaying figure in front of her. Child, is this my child? Child, don't think about revenge. Don't do anything. Don't think about anything. Live well and promise mother, okay? It was just like the letter she had seen in Long Chuyun's handwritten letter in the Land of Heritage. Long Chuyun's life lantern miniature did not leave behind any accusations of revenge or unwillingness. There were only some calm and serene statements. The place she could see in the life lantern miniature was the scenery of the Land of Heritage. She had named this place Chuyun Star. Long Chuyun's last days were spent in the Land of Inheritance. Arbor saw her carrying the infant in swaddling clothes and walking slowly in the land of heritage with a faint smile on her pale face. It was the first time Arbor saw a clear Long Chuyun at such a close distance. When the figure floated in front of her, she couldn't help but reach out, only to grab air. It was impossible to say that she wasn't disappointed. The little fellow expressionlessly put the figure back into the round jade pendant and said indifferently, "You really are an idiot. In this cannibalistic world, if you don't move forward, you'll be eaten until not even your bones are left. For the sake of the Dragon Clan, you didn't hesitate to break off relations with the Mu clan. In the end, you didn't end well on either side. Did anyone in the Dragon Clan say anything about you? When the Dragon Clan was ambushed in the River of Forgetfulness, did they come out to find you after recovering their vitality? Even after 3 to 5 years, did they come to find you? They didn't do anything. A married daughter is like spilled water. They've long forgotten about you." "Idiot," Arbor muttered softly, his little hand tightly gripping the round jade pendant. "Mother, I miss you. If you were still alive, you would have personally taught me martial arts and alchemy. What kind of fate did they have to miss each other for 2 lifetimes?" When Emolien pushed open the door and entered, she saw the shadow of the moon cast on Jojo. It made her look gloomy and gloomy. Under the moonlight, she looked dark and gloomy. "Why aren't the lights on?" He hastily walked up and picked up the little stoic. With a casual flick of his finger, he lit up all the candlesticks around them. The firelight illuminated the 2 people's faces. Sparks danced in the candlestick, and in an instant, it was as if the entire room was lit up. Emolien turned her little head over and looked at her seriously. "Don't let your imagination run wild, okay? With you like this, your husband can't do anything. I just want to keep an eye on you all day long." The little stoic's little face was wooden. Her eyelids rolled slightly as she cast him a dispirited glance. "Jojo, I heard that there are a lot of lotus flowers in that pond lotus sacred realm. Red, yellow, green, blue, there are all kinds of them you've seen before and haven't seen before." Arbor lifted his little face and looked at Emolien blankly. "And then? No matter what the Dragon Clan's goal is, we might as well follow their wishes and go to the River of Forgetfulness to refine the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm." Chapter 42-41. Arbor looked up at him curiously. "Your dad wants us to go?" Emolien nodded slightly. In reality, the trip to the River of Forgetfulness was imperative. Both of them were well aware that it all depended on how they went. "Do you think the incident on Lisha Island is reliable?" Arbor was silent for a moment before looking up at Emolien curiously. The matter of forming the Heavenly Fate Legion should be reliable. When Emolien read the words, "Kill the Heavenly Fate," she couldn't help but facepalm in exasperation. The Heavenly Fate's devastation in the coastal villages is much more severe than what we see here. Emolien carried the little stoic and walked to the side to sit down. Comparatively speaking, the situation in the River of Forgetfulness will be more tense. Isn't it suspicious that the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness detained the state preceptor with ulterior motives? Emolien brushed away the hair by her cheek. Long Qian's explanation to Royal Father was that the state preceptor trespassed on their sacred land for some unknown reason and was subsequently arrested. They said that the entire matter had nothing to do with our divine province and was merely the state preceptor's personal grudge with the River of Forgetfulness. Then why did the state preceptor send a message saying that the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness is using him to threaten me to go? This Long Qian's explanation is also correct. The state preceptor is recklessly fabricating nonsense. Arbor scoffed and nodded. Let's just assume that his explanation makes sense. Emolien rubbed her head with a smile. They probably discovered that using the state preceptor to threaten us is completely useless? They simply didn't expect that these two had always been used to acting recklessly and willfully. Why would they rush over to rescue the state preceptor because of his life and death? There's something wrong with their brains. Arbor pursed her lips in disdain and nudged her head against Prince Mo's chest. Let's go then. I've never been to the River of Forgetfulness, so I don't know what the place Mother grew up in is like. Emolien hugged her and lowered her head to look at her gently. Long Qian used mother-in-law's remains to lure me in. It is said that the land of forgetfulness is the place where mother-in-law grew up. Traces of mother-in-law's growth can be seen everywhere. Mother-in-law also left behind many relics in the river of forgetfulness. I've already promised him. He reached out to stroke his wife's head and said softly, I don't want you to have any regrets. Arbor's eyes flickered. He tilted his head and shook his sleeve. It wasn't like she was afraid of the forgotten River Dragon clan. Just as Jojo's lotus had said, she would go. She would refine their precious pond lotus sacred realm so that these people with evil intentions wouldn't even be able to find a place to cry. Mo Lien smiled as he nuzzled her jade-white forehead, asking softly, Qiao Qiao, if we refine the pond lotus sacred realm in the future, what star should we call it? Jojo's lotus star. The little stoic spoke seriously and wrapped her arms around his neck. Grow more colorful lotus flowers. When the time comes, we'll move in and live there for a while. Mo Lien couldn't resist laughing out loud and nodded repeatedly. Then we'll call it Qiao's lotus star. Sir Jojo's eyes brightened, and he nodded in approval. This couple was starting to yearn for the pond lotus holy land. In fact, they hadn't even taken any shape yet, but these two scoundrels had already claimed the pond lotus holy land as their own and even gave it a name in advance. Everything was ready. All that was left was to take this trip. After the two finished their discussion, the little stoic took out a handful of spirit root tempering pills from her pocket. That golden lotus is quite effective. Just now, she poked little treasure a dozen times and it spat out a handful. Chapter 42-42. Arbor stuffed these spirit root tempering pills into a bag and stuffed it into Mo Lien's hands. Give it to those less talented children of the Purple Forest Guard. It should be of help to them. These spirit root tempering pills could help them increase their aptitude. The difference in innate spirit roots could be said to be heaven and earth on the path of cultivation. Even if people with ordinary spirit roots cultivated diligently for several hundred years, they might not be able to surpass people with extraordinary aptitude. Although it made people feel deeply helpless, there was nothing they could do about it. Now, these spirit root tempering pills could help cultivators with ordinary aptitude increase their aptitude. At the very least, it could make their future path of cultivation a little easier and simpler. Mo Lien nodded with a smile and put away the bag of spirit root tempering pills. Tomorrow I'll have Yi handle it. He hugged the little fellow and said softly, those brats will definitely be very happy. On the morning of the next day, the two had just woken up in a sticky state when Eunuch Chen ran in joyfully with his flower-pinching fingers. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Crown Princess, His Majesty's reward has arrived. The little stoic was eating porridge with a spoon. Upon hearing this, she looked up and asked in bewilderment, what reward? Mo Lien placed a portion of pastry meat in front of his wife and said solemnly, His Majesty naturally has to reward us since he sent us on a diplomatic mission to Wangchuan. What a joke! If there was no reward, they could go as they pleased. It was such an arduous mission, and they had to wander the seas and spend their days on a deserted island. Not everyone could endure this kind of hardship. Arbor's eyes brightened, and he tossed his spoon aside and pulled Mo Lien up. Let's go and take a look. Mo Lien tugged at her small hand in amusement and picked up her small rice bowl. Have someone move a table outside. You can admire it while eating. Good idea. Perhaps if this darling is happy, I can eat 2 more bowls of porridge. Sir Jojo's eyes seemed to be sparkling. Prince Mo couldn't help but be overjoyed as he watched from the side. He knew that his wife was the happiest when she was counting the supplies. His father had done a good job today. He had sent someone to deliver gifts early in the morning so that Jojo could eat more. Thus, everyone saw that their master had the dining table moved out of the courtyard early in the morning and accompanied his wife to eat a very sumptuous breakfast in the garden. Everyone in the Eastern Palace knew that the great emperor had sent someone to deliver the reward. The gifts flowed into the Eastern Palace like flowing water. Just the list of gifts alone took more than 2 hours. After the little crown princess finished her breakfast, she nibbled on some fruits and some pastries. When the list of gifts was finally finished, she was secretly speechless. Her eyes sparkled as she glanced at her husband beside her. She nodded repeatedly and said, "Your father is quite impressive." Of course, Mother opened Father's private storehouse and dug out a lot of good stuff for us. Prince Mo grinned and rubbed against his wife's body. "Jojo, I'll give you all of these. Are you happy?" Arbor nodded. "Don't worry, there must be a lot of things in the river of forgetfulness. When the time comes, your husband will secretly help you search for them," Prince Mo murmured in his wife's ear. Sir Jojo's little face became more energetic. Those who were originally very resistant to the idea of going to the river of forgetfulness were now inexplicably reduced by half. Jojo's lotus was right. Since they had a hidden agenda and were harboring evil intentions, Sir Jojo and her husband would go and rob their nest clean. The river of forgetfulness was vast and had abundant resources. Chapter 42-43. When Mo Lien saw that his wife was starting to get spirited, he hurriedly struck while the iron was hot. "Jojo, let's go, we'll go and pack up these goods. Look at our father, he's so rustic, he didn't even bring out a space ring. He even had to bring out a list of gifts to sing, putting on airs." If Mo Lusheng heard this, he would definitely scold this rascal to death. What was a reward? Of course, everyone in and out of the court knew. That was a true reward. Xiqiao nodded in deep agreement. Then she stretched out her hand and made a gesture. Over 10 storage talismans suddenly floated up into the air and sorted everything in the courtyard. Then all the things that were scattered all over the ground were stored away. Crown Princess. Li Yi suddenly appeared in front of the young Crown Princess with a leap. This fellow's little face was taut, and there was even a small square brocade box under her arm. When she saw the young Crown Princess looking at her, she respectfully extended her hand to present the brocade box to her. "Please take a look." Her Majesty the Empress said that the property inside should originally be handed over to Your Highness the Crown Prince. Since the Crown Princess is in charge now, it's the same to hand it over to you. The young Crown Princess took a look and saw that it was filled to the brim with house deeds and spirit coin cards. Her little hand trembled, and she almost dropped the things on the ground. When Mo Lien saw this, he hurriedly extended his hand to help her hold onto the brocade box. The young Crown Princess quickly patted her husband's chest, saying with a long sigh, "Mother really doesn't lack money. Wife, keep all of these well. They're all yours now." When the Crown Prince said this, he didn't see those palace maids and eunuchs in the courtyard looking at him with worried gazes. They were really worried for His Highness In front of the Crown Princess, why did he hand everything over? They remembered that those court officials would more or less keep some private stash of money on their side as backup. His Highness the Crown Prince was too honest with his wife. "Husband, do you want to keep some for your use?" "No need, husband has money." The group of palace maids and eunuchs looked at each other and felt a trace of melancholy. Although he didn't know where this trace of melancholy came from, he still felt quite stifled. Every time they saw the way His Highness and the Crown Princess interacted, they always felt a little stifled. At this time, they still didn't understand that this was the feeling of a single dog being forced to swallow a mouthful of dog food and having nowhere to complain. Speaking of which, the Crown Prince and his wife didn't have much to prepare. In the past 2 days, the young Crown Princess had chosen a few of the more famous shops and estates in the capital from the estate the Empress had given her and toured them. The number of businesses in her hands was increasing. It seemed that she needed to train a manager to help her manage all the businesses. When the little Crown Princess returned, her face was full of melancholy. When Crown Prince saw that his wife was unhappy again, he quickly asked for the reason. He couldn't help but laugh. "Jojo, isn't it just finding a female manager? What's there to be worried about? You forgot that there are many talents in all aspects in husband's hidden night pavilion. I'll find one for you." Crown Prince was a man of his word. In less than half a day, he had found a capable female manager for Arbor, Song Ting. Arbor had a long talk with her and was very satisfied with this shrewd middle-aged woman. In the future, with someone to help him filter out important information and grasp all the business trends, she would be able to relax a lot. After all, she still had to put most of her energy into cultivation. As for the various problems with the businesses, she could only pick the important ones to deal with. Chapter 42-44. After another 2 days, Long Qian could not hold it in any longer and went to the emperor to persuade him. For example, Tian Yun is in dire straits, we cannot waste any more time on singing and dancing. Another example was, the crown princess leads people around the capital every day, we should not waste too much energy on nonsense, we should focus on doing something practical. He rambled on until the emperor felt dizzy and could not help but reach out to interrupt him. Young Master Long, what are you trying to say? Long Qian took a deep breath. If he could, he would pick up the inkstone beside him and smack the emperor on the head. Why are you pretending to be confused? Your Majesty, let's not beat around the bush. The situation along the river of forgetfulness is really bad. We should unite the 3 continents and fight against Tian Yun together. This is not a joke. We have already delayed long enough. I wonder when the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess can set off with us? Oh. Realization dawned on the Emperor's face as he nodded and said, we thought you had already discussed it with the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Didn't you? Long Qian, why was this family so difficult to deal with? Long Huan pressed his throbbing head and tried his best to suppress the anger in his belly. What was her relationship with the little Crown Princess? The Emperor would have to be blind to not see it. Their relationship was already like this. But the little Crown Princess would either roll her eyes or ignore them expressionlessly whenever she saw them. What was the point of discussing? The Crown Prince had no integrity in front of his wife. How could they expect the Crown Prince to help them persuade the little Crown Princess? He might as well throw a sow into the sky. Young Master Long, you don't have to be so impatient. The Emperor said to him with a smile. These 2 days, the Empress sent over some of the properties that originally belonged to the couple. The Crown Princess has not been idle these days, she has been patrolling the properties. Patrolling the properties, when could she not do so? Did she, the Crown Princess, have to do everything herself? Long Yun took a deep breath. Your Majesty, I wonder if you can issue a decree for us to depart tomorrow? The great Emperor looked at Long Qing with a troubled expression. Young Lord Long, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that my son and daughter-in-law both have their own opinions. If I issue an edict without asking for the reason, it is very likely that they will throw my edict and the eunuch out of the Eastern Palace. Long Qian was speechless. What use do I have for you? You are a fucking piece of trash. Why did this family of 4 look so hateful? Long Shi held back his anger and returned to the guest house. He continued to stay there patiently. 3 days later, the Eastern Palace finally sent someone to look for him. The one who sent the message was a young lady whose face was even more taut than the young Crown Prince consorts. She had a pretty appearance of 18 or 19 years of age and was dressed in black tight-fitting clothes. She hugged her sword and said when she saw him, "We're leaving in the afternoon. Prepare the sea supplies, food, clothing, and other necessities according to this list. It's all thanks to my master. Let's see who's the real deal." With that, she unsheathed her sword and sliced a stone table in the courtyard into 2 halves. Long Shangyun was sitting by the table. She jumped up and screamed in shock and anger. Her finger trembled as she pointed at the girl's departing figure. Long Yun was also so angry that he almost exploded. Thinking of the purpose of this trip, he forced himself to swallow his anger. Tomorrow, I'll catch up on 2 more chapters. Chapter 42-45. Fuck, if someone kept angering him like this along the way, would he die from anger? Long Qian could not help but deeply suspect this possibility. Long Shangyun suddenly stood up from the stone stool and shouted in exasperation, "Brother, are you going to allow her to do as she pleases? Look at what has become of her. She's just a mere servant girl and she dares to look down on us? That's not a mere servant girl." Long Qian's eyes flashed. "Her cultivation is above yours. She's a level 15 great spiritual master." Long Shangyun paused, her furious figure in a daze, and her pretty face contorted slightly. What was this? Even a little maid by his side had a higher cultivation than her, Long Shangyun. No wonder that woman was so arrogant and did not look down on her brother and her. Long Shangyun took a deep breath and could not hold back the anger in her heart. Brother, are you really going to do as they say? Her gaze landed on Long Qian. She saw that Long Qian was looking down at a list in his hand. Long Qian's expression was a little strange. As he looked at the list, his eyebrows could not help but twitch. What's written? Long Shangyun angrily walked to Long Qian's side and glanced at the list in his hand. With one look, her nose almost became crooked from anger. 3 meals a day? How could the food be different within a week? In such a short time, brother, you have to go to the city and buy everything? Wasn't this cheating? Was this cheating? Naturally, this was not cheating. The worst part was that the little crown princess daily necessities, ingredients and so on were all designated shops for Long Qian to buy. Needless to say, these shops were definitely opened by the little crown princess herself. The prices were probably very good. Look at what's written on this list. The furnishings in the rooms in the ship, the golden silk curtains used for the beds, the fine satin blankets, everything has to be according to their requirements and specifications. Long Shangyun was so angry that she wanted to crush the list in her hand. Long Qian's face darkened. He hurriedly snatched the list from her hand and took a deep breath. Oh hi. Yes. A gray-robed man in his early 30s suddenly appeared beside Long Huan. What orders do you have, young master? Take some people with you and buy all the items on this list within 2 hours. Let's go. Yes, young master. The man cupped his fists and bowed. He immediately took the list in his hand and waved his hand to lead a group of people out to buy. Long Shangyun glared angrily at her brother. Brother, why are you indulging her like this? Long Huan immediately looked back at her in annoyance. What idea do you have? The most important thing right now is to take them with us as soon as possible, Long Yun said in a low voice. Don't cause any more trouble. Long Shangyun's beautiful face was extremely gloomy. She clenched her fists so hard that her knuckles cracked. That damn Qiao Mu. One day, she would make this woman pay the corresponding price for her unruly behavior. Shangyun. Long Huan gave her a warning look and said in a low voice, Don't add any more trouble to the family. If it wasn't for you, why would the crown princess dislike us so much? Long Huan warned again, Did you hear what I said? Don't cause any more trouble. Long Shangyun bit her lips and nodded unwillingly. I understand, brother. Chapter 42-46. Gold and red curtains were drawn, and a fragrant mist filled the air. Mu Rochuan bowed as she walked into the room. Mother, may I know why you summoned me? Mu Qingya was wrapped in a moon-white robe and leaned against the edge of the brocade couch. Mu Qingya frowned slightly when she saw her daughter's unsmiling face. Her gaze fell on the centipede-like scar on the left side of her face, and she immediately looked away. Rochuan, pack your things and get ready to leave, Mu Qingya said casually. Mu Rochuan was startled. Mother, where do you plan to send me? Mu Qingya smiled and said, My child, you're almost fully recovered. I can't keep you by my side all day and watch you do nothing. Others will gossip about it. Mother, feel free to tell your daughter what to do, Mu Rochuan said indifferently. Mu Qingya nodded with a smile. Rochuan, Mother wants you to go to the Forgetful River and do something for Mother. Mu Rochuan looked up at the elegant woman in front of her. Mother, please tell me. Mu Qingya couldn't help but nod in satisfaction when she saw that Mu Rochuan's attitude was rather respectful. She raised her hand and took out a letter that she had already written and handed it to Mu Rochuan. Just do as the letter says. Mu Rochuan took the letter, lowered her head, and silently read through it. Then she looked up at Mu Qingya in surprise. Mother, you want me to capture her? Mu Qingya nodded. Mother has already thought of a few ways for you. You just have to act according to the circumstances. Mu Rochuan couldn't help but smile bitterly. Mother, I'm afraid this matter won't go as you wish. I wasn't even her match when I was at the peak of my cultivation, let alone now. Rochuan, you have too little confidence in yourself. Mu Qingya glanced at her indifferently. Mu Rochuan didn't speak for a long time. Mu Qingya sighed, stood up, and slowly walked to her side. Seeing that she was silent with her head lowered, Mu Qingya took her hand and said softly, "Roxuan, do you know what your biggest weakness is right now? You lack confidence." Mu Qingya sighed. "If you don't have confidence, you're no different from a salted fish." Mu Qingya raised her hand and brushed a strand of her daughter's hair behind her head. She said softly, "Roxuan, the most important thing for you to do now is to build confidence. You must know that there are no absolutes in this world. You were unable to deal with her in the past, but that does not mean that you are unable to deal with her now. Furthermore, Hong Chang and he are helping you." However, Mu Roxuan did not immediately perk up under her mother's encouragement. She took a step back. "Mother, I will go." Mu Qingya smiled gently and nodded. "I knew Roxuan was the most sensible, but he might not be able to come back." Mu Roxuan's next words made Mu Qingya's expression tense. Mu Roxuan lowered her eyes and said with a cold expression, "I will do my best. As for the chances of success, in my daughter's opinion, it's not even half." "Eldest miss, you're belittling yourself too much." The yellow-clothed woman on the side couldn't help but sneer. Mu Roxuan glanced at her. "Miss if you go with such an attitude, I advise you not to go. With your abilities, you won't last more than 3 minutes in her hands." He's eyes suddenly widened. Chapter 42-47. If she knows our purpose, she'll make you, me, and all of us die without a burial place. Mu Qingya frowned slightly and stared at Mu Roxuan for a long time before sighing softly. "My child, are you afraid of her?" "Mother, I was ignorant in the past. Now, I've grown up quickly under the painful lesson. How could a God Realm cultivator, an alchemy grandmaster, and a talisman grandmaster be so easy to catch? What's more, how many experts were around that person? Did they forget? You've not grown up now. You're as timid as a mouse." He sneered again and cupped her hands at Mu Qingya. "Hallmaster, I'll go make preparations first." Mu Qingya nodded with a faint smile. "Prepare well. Just tell Steward Kong if you need any supplies." "Yes, Hallmaster." Turned and left. She was very puzzled as to why the Hallmaster wanted Mu Roxuan to go with them. Mu Roxuan was now a cripple. Although her body had recovered well recently, she had no spiritual power. What could she do with the team? "Roxuan, you're the person I trust the most. Why would I harm you?" Mu Qingya took her daughter's hand and sat down. "Roxuan, I want you to use your wits, not your strength. Keep my letter well and act according to the situation. Don't worry. With me here, even if you lose your spiritual power, you won't become a cripple. As long as you take the basic mutation liquid on time, I believe that with your talent for concealment, you'll definitely be able to comprehend an extraordinary special ability." Mu Qingya handed a bag full of medicinal liquid to her daughter and looked at her with a gentle smile. She patted the back of her hand and said with a loving expression, "Are you confident, Roxuan?" Mu Roxuan faintly narrowed her eyes and pulled her hand out of Lin Mingya's warm grasp. She said softly, if it was Long Chuyun, she would definitely not let her biological daughter, Mu Qiao, drink such a strange liquid. Mu Qingya froze and then chuckled softly. How could that be? Every mother sincerely wants the best for their children. Mu Roxuan didn't say anything else. She stood up and bowed, then turned around and walked out. Mu Qingya stared coldly at her daughter's back and said softly, "Remember, capture her alive." "Hall Master." An old woman with a face full of wrinkles appeared beside Mu Qingya and said in a deep voice, "Miss, can we really use you like this?" Ro Xian is a smart child. She knows that she has no way out now. She has no other choice but to follow our Tian Yun. Yalan, you don't have to go this time. Let the children do it. Hall Master. I know you want to avenge your sister. What happened to Huilan was truly regrettable. She's definitely dead now that she's in Mu Qiao's hands. Mu Qingya sighed. But I want you to keep an eye on the people of the Hidden Moon Hall. This matter is very urgent. Yes, Hall Master. Zhang Yaolan gritted her teeth. This subordinate can wait for revenge. Mu Qingya nodded and smiled. If we're lucky, Roxuan should be able to capture him, Lin Xuanpier. Long Qing stood in the wind in a white robe and watched the people of the Long family moving boxes of supplies onto the ship. Chapter 42-48. The Crown Princess's food, clothing, and other necessities were all purchased according to the list. It was actually very simple. The Dragon Clan's people only needed to bring a group of people to a shop designated by the little Crown Princess. Once they entered and informed them, the goods would be brought directly to the dock. It was obvious that the little Crown Princess had already informed the shopkeeper that everything was ready. They were just waiting for the Dragon Clan to pay for the goods. Long Shangyun looked at the boxes being moved onto the ship. She frowned deeply and could not help but take a deep breath. She looked at Long Huan, who was standing upright beside her. "Brother, they are not here yet." The veins on Long Huan's forehead twitched. He suppressed the anger in his heart that was about to explode. Deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths. He could not get angry now. They were still standing in the territory of the Divine Land. He could not make the decision. After a phoenix's cry, everyone saw a green bird with long wings coming from afar. Prince Mo and the little Crown Princess stood on its back, hand in hand. Their clothes fluttered in the wind. Behind them was a two-winged eagle. Mu Xingqian stood with his hands behind his back. When Long Huan's gaze fell on the little Crown Princess, he was obviously relieved. No matter what, as long as the little Crown Princess was willing to return to the Forgetfulness River, his mission would be considered completed. No matter how much trouble he had gone through and how much he had suffered, all these could be ignored because of the little Crown Princess's arrival. Long Huan led a group of Dragon Clan members and bowed to the two from afar. Long Shangyun gritted her teeth. She followed her brother unwillingly and bowed as well. She needed to be patient now. Once they boarded the ship and left the Divine Land, they would arrive at the Forgetfulness River. Then, the little Crown Princess would not have the final say. Thinking of this, she took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the restless and uneasy emotions in her heart. She forced out an ugly smile. "Since the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess are here, let's set off." The little Crown Princess glanced in her direction but didn't say anything. The young Crown Princess didn't make a sound after she disembarked from Qingwan while holding the Crown Prince's hand. From afar, a few calls of "Saintess" could be heard. Arbor turned his head and saw Feng Heping leading Feng Zhangqing, Feng Zhangfei, and a large group of clansmen quickly walking over. "Saintess, why didn't you bring them along?" Head Elder Feng Heping said with a gloomy expression. "These are the 100 disciples selected by the Feng clan. Take them with you to the River of Forgetfulness. You can ask them to do something for you." Long Shangyun's face turned ugly. "No. Why was this little Crown Princess so troublesome?" Feng Heping turned to glare at her. "Why not? Do you think our Saintess is like you? How can our Saintess not have anyone by her side to serve her when she goes out?" Feng Changqing and his brother looked at the sky speechlessly. "All right, it's decided then," Feng Heping said to himself. He glanced at Long Xiang, then turned to face Arbor with a bright smile. "Saintess, it's getting late. Let's set off." The 2,000 disciples of the Feng clan followed behind Feng Heping. They cupped their hands and said in unison, "Saintess, have a safe journey." Arbor turned to board the ship expressionlessly. Mo Lien left with his wife with a dark expression. The ship set off and slowly left the shore. Arbor stood on the deck with a stoic expression. She looked at Feng Heping leading a group of Feng clan members and waved at her with all her might. The end of this volume 2019. 7:20. Chapter 42-49. Great Holy Maiden, be careful. Great Holy Maiden, take care of yourself. Remember to come back early. The Feng clansman's chatter sounded in her ears. Although Arbor kept a straight face, she was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Originally, she didn't tell Feng Heping about this trip because she didn't want him to cause such a big commotion. But now looking at the Feng clansmen standing in a row along the river, they waved at her enthusiastically. Sir Jojo's face was wooden. He reluctantly raised his little paw and waved it at them from afar. Prince Mo turned to look at his wife. For some reason he felt like laughing. Feng Changqing coughed lightly. He walked forward and said, "Great holy maiden. It's quite windy here. Let's go into the cabin." Arbor put down her paw and turned around. She put her hands behind her back and walked into the cabin with her back straight. Long Huan and his sister were sitting in the elegantly decorated cabin on the first floor. Seeing them enter, Long Shangyun's expression turned ugly. She had never seen such a troublesome person before. Who would bring so many guards with them when visiting someone else's home? Only this crown princess would be so troublesome. Arbor pulled Prince Emo and found 2 random seats to sit down. She asked expressionlessly, "Where is our room?" "The last room on the left on the 2nd floor. It's your room." Long Huan's mouth twitched. "Cousin, don't worry. Everything has been arranged according to your preferences. Golden silk curtains, fine satin blankets, even a pillow and a fine-toothed comb were of high quality. Why don't you go to heaven?" Sir Jojo replied with an "oh," and didn't say anything else. Long Huan rolled his eyes inwardly. He really couldn't stand the way the little crown princess talked to others. If she was happy, she would talk to you. If she wasn't happy, she would ignore you. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. Such a strange temperament. What kind of family did he come from? "Since we have nothing better to do, why don't we play Ma Diao?" Long Shangyun suddenly suggested. "After we enter the sea, we still need to sail for about half a month." Long Shangyun glanced at Arbor and said, "It's quite boring to be idle every day." "All right, cousin, do you know how to play horse diao?" "I know a thing or two." The little stoic nodded his small head, looking very obedient. Emo Lien's lips twitched. Long Shangyun smiled and waved her hand. "It doesn't matter if you know a little. It's good that you know how to play. Don't worry, big brother and I will go easy on you." Long Huan smiled and nodded. "Cousin, we're all family. Even if we lose, we can't lose to outsiders." Soon, the mahjong table was set up. Arbor, Long Xie, and Long Shangyun sat down together. Prince Emo moved a stool over and sat beside his wife. He attentively poured her tea and fanned her. When Long Shangyun saw this scene, her mouth couldn't help but twitch. "Crown Prince, don't you want to play a few rounds?" Emo Lien glanced at Long Huan impatiently. "How can I win my wife's money? It was really annoying to flaunt affection all the time, okay?" Long Huan silently shut his mouth. Then he turned and said to a guard standing beside him with a sword, "Jiang Song, come and play a few rounds with us." The guard instantly looked terrified and shook his head repeatedly. "Young master, I don't have money." Long Shangyun was anxious to get back at him. She clapped her hands and said, "Sit down. If we lose, you don't have to pay. Big brother will naturally pay." Long Huan. Chapter 4250. The little crown princess cupped her fists at the 3 of them. "Thank you for letting me win." The 3 of them were speechless. "Let me win, Mies. The game hasn't even started yet." What's with her expression as if she's sure to win? It's so depressing. Feng Changqing and his brother, who were standing behind the little crown princess, couldn't help but twitch their lips. They felt that the little crown princess's expression just now was strange and hilarious. "Wifey, you just have to perform normally." Crown Prince Emo fanned his wifey while peeling an orange with his slender, jade-like fingers. "Cousin, with your net worth, why don't we play a little bigger? How about 10 times the original amount?" Long Shangyun's smile was extremely radiant. Arbor nodded. "It doesn't matter. I like it when cousin is so generous." Long Shangyun smiled and complimented her, but her hands didn't slow down at all as she played a deck of cards. Arbor drew a card expressionlessly and played a card that she didn't want. Prince Emo stuffed a piece of orange into her mouth. She chewed twice, played another round, and drew a flower. Just look at her expression. It was impossible to tell whether her cards were good or bad. She was expressionless the entire time. Mu Xingshan inspected the front and back of the boat and found that there were about 100 Dragon Clan members on the boat. The boatman had been sailing the route from the River of Forgetfulness to China all year round. It was said that he had been sailing for more than 10 years and was very experienced. "You immortals. It's said that there's a transportation array that can transport you far away in a flash, right? But it can't be used at sea. The boatman's tanned face showed a simple and honest smile. There's no specific direction at sea. It's not as easy to identify as on land. If you're transported wrongly, you'll probably be lost at sea forever. That's why I've sent many immortals like you. When they go to the river of forgetfulness, they'll come to us. Mu Xingchen chatted with the boatman for a long time. When he returned to the cabin, he saw his sister and Long Huan at the mahjong table. As soon as he stepped through the door, he heard his younger sister's cold voice in his ear. A one-colored 9-treasure lotus lantern. Thank you. 888,000 spirit coins per family. Thud. Mu Xingchen saw a guard fall from his stool and sit on the ground. Long Shangyun's hand that was holding the card trembled slightly. She put on a fake smile and said, "Cousin is really lucky." It's okay. Let cousin win a little first." Long Shangyun continued to smile. "Jiang Song, get up quickly. Don't act like you haven't seen the world. Anyway, Big Brother will pay you if you lose. What are you panicking for?" Long Xie felt like crying. "Jojo, have some water." Mo Lien handed a teacup to his wife. "Jojo." Sama took a sip and shuffled the deck again with the others. His movements were fluid and it was obvious that he was not a newbie. Long Shangyun secretly gritted her teeth. Her face trembled as she said, "Cousin, you don't look like a newbie. Why do you say you know a little?" "I do know a little." Arbor nodded and said sincerely, "Not many people are willing to play with me. I've only played horse diao 5 times in my life. This is the 5th time." Everyone, Feng Zhangfei couldn't help but laugh. His elder brother, Feng Changqing, glanced at him. Feng Zhangfei hurriedly stopped. If Feng Heping was here and saw that Feng Zhangfei dared to laugh at the saintess, he would definitely use a water ladle to smash 3 big bumps on his head. Chapter 4251. Half an hour later. Long Shangyun's cold sweat dripped down from her head, and she couldn't help but fall to the ground. In such a short period of time, she lost 13 rounds in a row. The little crown princess played 13 rounds in a row, all of which were the same color, the same color, the same color, the same color, and the same color. Long Qian's face was somewhat numb as he played. The 14th round, the same color, the same color. The 15th round, the same color, the same color. The 16th round, ha ha ha. Long Shangyun's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and she suddenly raised her hand to support her forehead. Brother, I feel a bit dizzy. I want to go rest first. Why don't you find someone else to play?" Long Qian hurriedly stood up and pretended to support his younger sister. "Shangyun, are you all right? Maybe it's because the weather is too hot. The sea will be even hotter." "We haven't even entered the sea yet," Arbor said lightly. Long Qian laughed dryly and continued, "Then, Crown Princess, I'll help Shangyun back to her room to rest first. Don't you plan on leaving after paying the spirit coins?" Long Qian's back stiffened. "We played 19 rounds just now, so the total is 16872,000 spirit coins per person. Leave after paying the bill. This Crown Princess doesn't like people owing me money." Long Qian stiffly turned around and said to the young Crown Prince Consort, "You? Why you? But aren't you very good at playing cards?" How could she have the face to say that she only knows a bit? The little Crown Princess had a puzzled expression. "I only know a bit." She only knew how to play cards, so how could she not know a bit? She didn't even know how to play pinghu, and she had always complained about it to her mother. Mo Lien, who was sitting on the side, was about to die from laughter. Just now, he had been sitting next to his wife and watching her play cards. It was simply a visual pleasure. His wife was like a little monster, getting whatever she wanted and getting whatever she wanted. Her 9 treasures lotus lantern seemed like a gift from the heavens, as expected of a relative of the Tendo family, Prince Mo thought to himself. Long Yen took a deep breath. "All right." Like a martyr, he took out several spirit coin cards from his pocket and tossed them all to Qiaomu. There should be 51 million spirit coins in total. Arbor nodded and put the card in his pocket. He asked casually, "Are you still playing tomorrow? Play your ancestors." Long Huan left in a huff. Not only was he cursing Arbor in his heart, He was also cursing his own sister, Long Shangyun. If it wasn't for the brainless Long Shangyun who suggested that she was bored and wanted to play with Arbor, would they have lost so miserably? Wasn't this too tragic? Long Shangyun put on a long face. Brother, I originally wanted her to lose more money to make up for the purchasing fees she cheated you out of this afternoon. Who would have thought that he would be tricked by the little crown princess again? Long Shangyun gritted her teeth. She's too good at pretending. I really thought she was a newbie who knew a thing or two. Who knew? Shut up. Long Huan angrily glared at Long Shangyun. I'm warning you. From tomorrow onwards, don't go provoking her. He could tell that every time Long Shangyun went to provoke the little crown princess, she wouldn't have a good ending. Speaking of which, it was always his sister, Long Shangyun, who suffered losses. Why couldn't this idiot learn from his mistakes? Long Shangyun had been bullied since a few days ago, and now she was being scolded by her brother who always loved her. She couldn't help but cry. Chapter 42-52. Long Qian couldn't bear to see his sister like this, so he wrapped his arms around her shoulders and comforted quietly, All right, Shangyun, Big Brother isn't blaming you. I just hope you grow some brains in the future and don't provoke her again. We'll talk about everything after we return to the River of Forgetfulness and see Mother. Long Shangyun bit her lip and said aggrievedly while shedding tears, Mother will definitely help me deal with her. All right. Long Qian patted her shoulder. You've also been on tenterhooks for so many days. It's been hard on you. Everything is going smoothly now. Have a good rest today and don't think too much. Long Shangyun nodded. On the other side, the little stoic transferred the money in Long Qian's spirit coin card to her own spirit coin card, feeling a bit stifled. What's wrong with them? These people were all quite strange. They were the ones who challenged her to a horse fight every time. But they were also the ones who fled in defeat every time. They definitely won't be willing to continue playing with me tomorrow. Whoever plays with you will be unlucky. Feng Zhangfei couldn't help but ridicule inwardly. What should we do tomorrow? Jojo. Mu Xingchen walked toward her with a smile, holding a lively fish in his hand. Want to roast fish? The next day, when Long Qian and his sister arrived on the deck, they saw that the little stoic and the others had already eaten an extremely exquisite breakfast. She had Long Qian purchase all the ingredients and store them in ice to keep them fresh. Kaidai Veranda's products naturally wouldn't disappoint, but the kitchen maid's culinary skills were passable. However, they were currently floating on the sea, so everything could only be simplified. The stoic man's motto was to eat and use Long Qian's food. Since Long Qian was the one who invited them to the River of Forgetfulness, then he naturally had to pay for the expenses. Don't expect Sir Jojo to pay for it. Long Qian couldn't help but feel his balls ache when he saw their contented appearances. What was even more painful was that the little stoic brought 100 Feng clansmen with her. Originally, she only needed to pay for a few people's meals, but now, she had to be responsible for more than 100 people originally. The ingredients they purchased were enough for all of them to eat until the River of Forgetfulness, but now, they freaking had to resupply midway. Long Qian felt a bit sorry for himself when he saw the ingredients being used up and spirit coins flowing out every day. Even if he had money, yesterday's meal had basically used up all his money. Young master. A servant of the Dragon Clan invited Long Qian and his sister to take a seat and served them breakfast and snacks. The little stoic, Prince Mo, Mu Xingchen, and the Feng Chongqing brothers were seated at the original square table. After adding another seat for Long Huan and his sister, it became a little crowded. Long Huan smiled and said, "You are all up early. Are you not used to sleeping on the sea?" Mu Xingchen said indifferently, "It's all right. We will cross the river and enter the sea at this time tomorrow. When the time comes, the sailing speed will be faster. If the weather is good, we can enjoy the seascape along the way." Their two-story ship was exquisitely built with carved beams and jade pillars, and the rooms on the second floor had all been redecorated. Therefore, as long as they didn't encounter any particularly violent weather, even if they were to float on the sea for half a month, they would still be as comfortable as at home. "Thank you, young Master Long," Mu Xingchen said politely. Long Qian said with a smile, "We're siblings, so there's no need to be so courteous." As they spoke, they heard clanking on the surface of the river. Everyone looked over and saw a skiff bobbing up and down on the river, drifting with the current. Chapter 4253. A person was sitting at the bow of the skiff with his back facing them. From the back, his white robes and long hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like an elegant young sir. The sound of a zither flowed along with the river water, approaching from afar. The little stoic glanced curiously in that direction, her eyes revealing traces of vigilance. Which elegant young sir with a normal brain would go with the flow and play the zither in this boundless river? With such a small boat, a slightly bigger wave would immediately capsize it. What elegance could a drowned rat have? Long Huan's eyes flickered as he gazed at the back of the figure on the skiff. He said with a smile, "Truly an interesting brother. Cousin, do you think we should invite him to sit on the boat?" The little crown princess turned to look at him, revealing a treacherous expression that seemed to want to say something but hesitated. As Long Huan held his teacup, a strange thought instantly surfaced in his mind. Why did he feel like his cousin's gaze was so abnormal? Feng Zhangfei's lips twitched, and he looked at Long Huan sympathetically. He felt that with the little lady's abnormally vile and bewitching personality, this young Master Long was probably going to be in trouble again. "Cousin, there's no harm in speaking frankly. You like men?" As the little lady spoke, she even shifted her stool and squeezed closer to her husband, her small hand involuntarily reaching out to protect him. Mo Lian, Long Huan. Right now, his mental activity was, "Why can't I freaking slap this little stoic to death? What nonsense are you spouting?" Long Shangyun was enraged. "How can you slander my brother like this?" The little stoic extended 2 fingers, drawing an arc with her gaze. "Just now, you kept looking at the man on the skiff with a strange gaze. Is it admiration?" "Everyone." Long Huan's face twitched harshly. "Cousin, you're thinking too much. I'm not interested in men." Feng Zhangfei glanced at Long Huan sympathetically. This young Master Long was truly a bit pitiful. The little stoic glanced at Long Huan expressionlessly. She sat up straight and put down her small hand blocking her husband's path, saying coldly, "Then you want to invite him to sit on the bed?" "Pooh." Feng Zhangfei spat out a mouthful of tea. Feng Zhangqing laughed silently. He quickly took a piece of cloth and wiped his brother's sleeves. Long Qi was so angry that his finger trembled slightly. He lifted his finger to point in the little stoic's direction, and his handsome face turned dark red. She was clearly doing it on purpose. What the hell was she talking about? Mo Lian was secretly amused and pursed her lips. The little guy's expressionless face was a little cute as he entertained others. The little stoic abruptly stood up. Just as Long Huan's nerves were stretched taut, she grabbed Long Shangyun, who was beside him, and stood up. Her movements were smooth and swift as she swung her small arm and flung Long Shangyun away. "Ask your sister to invite him." Long Shangyun's eyes were round as saucers, and she was flung away by the little stoic without warning. Her entire person flew through the air, over the ship's railing, and plummeted towards the bottom of the surging river. "Ugh! Shangyun!" Long Shi jumped up and rushed to the railing to take a look. He saw that the little stoic's throw was so precise that she directly flung his sister, Long Shangyun, onto that undulating skiff. She happened to be standing at the bow of the boat. Long Shangyun wasn't completely useless. Her body swayed left and right before she immediately steadied herself. She looked down and saw that the man in white was still playing the zither with downcast eyes, as if he was completely unaware that there was a young lady in front of him. Chapter 4254. Shangyun, come back quickly. Long Yun was very anxious. He didn't care too much and immediately shouted. Long Shangyun steadied her emotions. She stood on the bow of the boat and gently rocked along with the river. The pink dress accentuated her beautiful face. Long Shangyun held a long sword horizontally in her hand and looked at the man with vigilance. She didn't expect this man to look so handsome from the back, But when she looked at him from the front, she could only see that his mud-colored pants were tattered. When she looked closer, she could see that his hair was also tangled, as if it hadn't been washed in a long time. The man placed a guqin on his knees. Under his long sleeves, several dark fingers were dancing. The head of the guqin had been damaged long ago, and 2 of its strings were broken. It looked a bit strange. In this place where the river was surging and the boundaries couldn't be seen, a young master in tattered clothes was playing a guqin that was about to break. Strange, very strange. Long Shangyun heard her brothers shout and was about to fly away from the bow. The man who had been quietly playing the guqin with his head lowered suddenly looked up. Long Shangyun exchanged a glance with him and cried out in horror. This person only had 2 empty holes left in his eyes. At this moment, he was looking at her faintly. A pair of ghost hands that looked like chicken claws came out of his tattered white sleeves and suddenly attacked her. Long Shangyun was shocked, angry, and frightened. She hurriedly flew up 1/2 meter and slashed the long sword in her hand at the man's ghost claws. White light flashed. The man retracted his hand, but his movements were extremely fast. When he was in midair, he suddenly pulled the strings and played the divine song of death. The music was noisy and disturbed people's emotions. Long Shangyun's chest felt stuffy from the chaotic plucking. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. It's getting more and more perfect. A second-rank special-grade zombie. Arbor muttered to himself. Not only does it look no different from a human from a distance, but it also has innate talent in guqin skills. Its special music can cause people's emotions to become chaotic and their conscience to shake. Compared to the 18th sister and Wei Mingli he saw before, this zombie seemed to be much stronger. Long Huan turned his head upon hearing this and glared hatefully at Xiaomu. You already knew that person was a zombie? Why did you? Arbor glanced at him coldly. Didn't young Master Long also want to trick us? Long, she choked on her indifferent words. Previously, he indeed had the mood of watching a joke and wanted to see the little Stoics group suffer a setback. With his experience, he was naturally able to immediately tell that the thing on the small boat was no ordinary person. Long Yun wanted to wait for the Stoic face and the others to be unable to deal with this zombie before he stepped in to help. As a result, no matter how unhappy the little Stoic was, it wouldn't be good for her to lash out at her savior. It was a pity that the Stoic face saw through her beautiful imagination. Not only did he see through it, he even tricked his younger sister, Long Shangyun. What kind of nonsense was this? He didn't want to say another word to the Stoic face. He could see that as long as he had crooked thoughts, the Stoic face might not do anything to him, but he would definitely teach his younger sister a lesson and let Shangyun continue to be unlucky. Long Yun was alarmed and furious on the inside. He hastily waved his hand and shouted, "Someone come quickly and help the second miss return." Several dozen Long clan members on the large boat exploded into action and swiftly pounced in the direction of the small boat. They stabbed their swords at the zombie that was sitting cross-legged in midair and randomly playing the guqin. Clang, clang, clang. Several guqin notes vibrated. Chapter 4255. One of the Dragon Clan clansmen was caught off guard and his sea of consciousness was injured by the zither music. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell into the river. In the blink of an eye, a red-eyed sword fong fish that was about 10 feet long suddenly drilled out of the river. It caught the cultivator in its mouth and chewed twice. In less than a few seconds, it had broken off a perfectly fine cultivator and swallowed him. Ah! Long Shangyun saw this scene at close range and was almost scared out of her wits. She let out a sharp scream. Long Qian heard her scream and couldn't help but feel anxious. Without caring too much, he jumped out of the boat and flew towards his sister. Long Qian rushed to Long Shangyun's side and grabbed his sister's waist. He shouted, "Concentrate your spiritual energy and attack the corpse puppet's head." Dozens of Dragon Clan clansmen reached out and touched their long swords. Their spiritual energy shone brightly. Dozens of 5 spirits' power were released from the various spirit weapons in the hands of the Dragon Clan clansmen and attacked the zither-playing corpse puppet's head. Roar! The zither-playing corpse puppet raised its two hollow eyes and let out a thunderous roar at the dozens of Dragon Clan clansmen. The river waters suddenly became turbulent, and a whirlpool formed in the middle of the river, rolling and rotating. Long Qian shouted angrily, "Be careful of this corpse puppet. It's gathering the mutated corpse fish in the river nearby." Bang bang bang. A few figures were blown away by the corpse puppet's roar. They supported each other and stabilized their bodies with great difficulty, so they didn't fall into the river. Dozens of red-eyed sword fang fish suddenly jumped out of the whirlpool. Each of them was about 3 meters long and half as tall as a person. They bit at the people's ankles. "Rise! Rise!" Long Qian shouted sharply. All the Dragon Clan clansmen's faces changed. They raised their chi and rushed up. 2 of them were a bit slower and were bitten by the red-eyed sword fang fish. They felt a heart-wrenching pain in their ankles. Their blood flowed backward. With a scream, they were dragged into the river and eaten by the sword fang fish. Long Qian's face was extremely ugly. He flew back a few meters with Long Shangyun and quickly dragged her back to the boat. The zither-playing corpse puppet seemed to be completely enraged. It suddenly stretched out its ghostly claw and swept the zither strings. After a few clangs, more than 10 invisible white lights attacked Long Qian and Long Shangyun from behind. Xiao Mu leaned against the railing and watched them fight with each other, her small, pale face expressionless. Long Qian could already see the ship's railing in front of him, but a strong gust of wind came from behind him, preventing him from moving forward. The only thing he could do was to push his younger sister, Long Shangyun, forward. Then, he turned around and quickly activated his defensive spirit artifact to block the attacks. The zither-playing corpse puppet's cultivation had broken through to the god realm. As soon as Long Yun exchanged blows with him, he felt that something was wrong. This corpse puppet was too powerful. Even he was no match for the corpse puppet. The moment the defensive barrier was activated, it was broken by the other party. With a cracking sound, the defensive barrier in front of him was instantly shattered by the corpse puppet. Roar! The zither-playing corpse puppet seemed to have locked onto him. Its figure flashed and appeared in front of Long Huan. Its pitch-black claws grabbed at Long Huan's neck. If the corpse puppet grabbed him, his neck would be fine. Not to mention, his body would definitely be poisoned by the corpse poison. "Brother!" Long Shangyun rushed to the railing and shouted, "Hurry, hurry and save brother. Go and save brother." Chapter 4256. The rest of the members of the dragon family who stayed on the ship hurriedly jumped over the railing and rushed towards Long Qing to surround him. Long Shangyun gripped the railing tightly and screamed at Long Hua, watch out, brother. All of you, be careful and protect young master." Under the combined defense of the Dragon Clan members, the zither-playing corpse puppet's attack was blocked by them. A few Dragon Clan members protected Long Hua and retreated to the ship. "Brother!" Long Shangyun jumped into Long Hua's arms and cried in shock and fright. "Are you okay, brother?" Long Hua's face was slightly pale. He shook his head slightly at his sister and then turned to look at Arbor, who was sitting calmly at the table. Like an enraged leopard, Long Shangyun abruptly pounced in Xiao Mu's direction and swung her fist at Xiao Mu's face without any explanation. "Do you have any sense of propriety when joking? You can't play around with this kind of thing, Before Long Shangyun could get close, Arbor whipped her away. "Shangyun!" Long Hua hurriedly had 2 Dragon Clan members grab Long Shangyun. The 2 Dragon Clan members supported Long Shangyun on both sides and barely steadied themselves before glaring angrily in Arbor's direction. Arbor grabbed Mu Xingqian's hand and looked in Long Shangyun's direction. He said coldly, "You want to die?" Long Shangyun's eyes were red with anger. She pointed at Arbor and said angrily, You? What kind of woman was this? Cold and heartless, heartless and heartless. The siblings had treated them to good food and drinks along the way. How many spirit coins had they spent for this woman? However, the other party didn't appreciate it at all. Just now, they even threw her to the corpse puppet, causing her to almost die. Arbor snorted and turned to look at Long Hua. His eyes flashed with a demonic light. "Young Master Long, I advise you not to play tricks with me. I have 10,000 ways to make your sister beg for death. You can try them one by one. Long Hua's heart went cold. He hurriedly went forward and grabbed the furious Long Shangyun. Cousin, you misunderstood. I misunderstood? Arbor glanced at the siblings as if they were idiots. You're an expert in the sea. How could you not know whether the visitor is a human or a ghost? Long Shangyun, I'm not joking with you. I'm Arbor and I never joke. Arbor looked coldly at Long Shangyun, who was about to go crazy, and said word by word, I wanted you to die just now, so I threw you out. Didn't your brother want to screw me over? I'll screw you over first. Let's see who dies first. Long Shi hurriedly grabbed Long Shangyun, who was so angry that she wanted to rush up again. Long Huan looked at Arbor deeply and took a deep breath. It's my fault. I shouldn't have used that corpse puppet to joke with my cousin. It's good that you know. Arbor looked at him coldly, then turned and left. Long Shangyun shrieked, Where are you going? Once this woman left, Prince Mo and the others naturally followed. Were they going to let the Dragon Clan members deal with the zither-playing corpse puppet alone? Didn't they need to do anything? Long Huan grabbed his sister's hand tightly, stopping her from rushing over and humiliating herself again. Taking a deep breath, Long Huan lowered his voice and said to the Dragon Clan members, Everyone gather and deal with the corpse puppet. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.